We all know that everyone is searching for a place to feel safe. Some look for it in locked doors, others in loud crowds, and some in complete silence. But what if true safety isn't a place at all? What if even the smallest, most helpless lamb can be guarded from roaring lions and raging storms? In today's video, we'll talk about how Jesus guards the helpless lamb. So let's not waste any time and let's begin. The voice leads the lamb forward through the darkness, step by hesitant step. The hills are still cold and the wind still bites, but something in that voice pulls stronger than fear. It isn't thunderous or forceful. It's steady, familiar in a way the lamb can't explain. And as it walks, the shadows begin to break, not because the night is gone, but because the voice is near. Ahead, through the blur of mist, a shape appears, a wooden gate, worn by wind and rain, but standing firm. Behind it, faint glimmers of light flicker like warm embers waiting to become flame. The lamb hesitates. Gates mean walls. Walls mean exclusion. What if it isn't welcome? Then he steps into view, the shepherd. Not a distant figure on a high throne. He's close enough that the lamb can see the dust on his feet, the weariness in his robe, the scars on his hands. Yet his eyes hold no accusation, only a quiet knowing, like he has seen every step the lamb took to get lost, and still he opens the gate. "I am the gate," he says softly. "Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture." His voice doesn't push, it invites. The lamb looks past him. Inside are other sheep, resting, breathing calmly, wrapped in peace like a blanket. None of them seem afraid. None run from him. They look up when he speaks, recognizing his voice the way flowers recognize the sun. Still, the lamb wavers at the threshold. What if it's too broken, too dirty? What if the shepherd realizes it's not worth all this effort? But the shepherd doesn't step back. He steps closer. "I know my sheep," he whispers, "and my sheep know me. I call them by name." He kneels to the lamb's level, unafraid of its trembling or its scars. One hand reaches out, not to drag or force, but to welcome. His touch is nothing like the cold night. It's warm, solid, safe. Slowly, the lamb steps forward. The moment it crosses the gate, the air changes. The wind seems softer. The earth feels steady under its feet, as though this place was made for rest. The shepherd gently closes the gate, not to trap, but to protect. Inside the fold, the lamb notices something unexpected. The shepherd stays. He doesn't lock them in and walk away. He sits near the entrance, watches the hills, listens to the night. Every rustle, every distant howl, his eyes sharpen. He guards, personally. Some of the older sheep come closer to the little one, not to judge, not to question, but to welcome. One nudges its head gently against the lamb's side, as if to say, "You belong now." Yet outside the walls, darkness moves. Shadows prowl, eyes glinting. There are thieves who climb the rocks, wolves that linger in silence. They do not come through the gate because the gate is guarded. "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy," the shepherd says, as if answering the lamb's unspoken fear. "But I have come that they may have life, and have it to the full." Life. Not just survival, not just escaping danger, but life. The lamb lies down on soft grass, weary bones finally allowed to rest. Its breathing slows. For the first time in what feels like forever, its heartbeat doesn't race. The shepherd's voice becomes a lullaby, a promise carried through the night air. Still, questions linger in the lamb's fragile heart. Why me? Why would he leave the flock for one? Will he leave again? Will I wander again? But before fear can rise again, the shepherd speaks once more, as if he knows each fear before it's formed. "No one," he says, eyes steady on the horizon, "will snatch them out of my hand." The firelight inside the fold glows softly. The stars seem closer here, and the night, though still dark beyond the walls, no longer feels endless, because the shepherd is awake, watching, guarding, waiting for morning. Morning settles softly over the hills. The flock rests within the fold, warmed by the shepherd's presence and the gentle embrace of sunlight. Some gather near the stream, some sleep in the shade, but one small lamb stands apart. It watches the open fields beyond the stone walls, where the wind moves freely and the grass seems brighter. Curiosity and restlessness whisper louder than peace. No one pushes it away. No one forces it to leave. It simply takes one quiet step, then another. The shepherd notices, but he does not call it back, not yet. He knows the heart must choose to stay as much as it chooses to wander. The lamb walks through the gate, glancing back only once. Everything outside feels larger, unrestrained. There are no walls, no boundaries, just open sky. At first, it feels like freedom. The grass beyond the fold tastes sweet. The air feels wild. The lamb runs further, chasing butterflies, chasing whispers of places far from watchful eyes. No one corrects its steps. No staff gently pulling it back. The world ahead widens, and the farther it goes, the more the shepherd's voice fades behind it. Hours pass. The sun climbs high and starts to burn. The grass is no longer soft beneath its feet. Thorns begin to tangle around its wool. The path grows uneven. There is no stream nearby, only dry ground and biting insects. Still, the lamb presses on, convinced that maybe, just a little farther ahead, it will find what it's searching for. But evening arrives sooner than expected. Clouds gather where the sky was once clear. The wind howls without warning, cold and sharp against its skin. The lamb calls out, softly at first, then louder. No answer, just empty fields and silent shadows. It tries to return the way it came, but the path is gone. The grass looks unfamiliar. The rocks all seem the same. Panic rises like a flood in its chest. Its tiny legs tremble. Not from cold, but from the heavy weight of fear. Somewhere in the distance, a low growl echoes. Eyes appear in the darkness, hungry, yellow, patient. A wolf steps into view, not rushing, not attacking, just watching, waiting for the lamb to fall. The lamb freezes. Its heart beats so loud it can hear it in its ears. There is no fold to run to, no gate, no shepherd in sight. It lets out a cry, a broken, desperate sound. And then, silence. Not the silence of abandonment, a different kind, one that makes the wolf pause and turn its head. Footsteps, slow, steady, calm. The shepherd steps into the clearing, not with sword or shield, just a staff in his hand and a fierce, unwavering peace in his eyes. The wolf snarls but doesn't move. The shepherd doesn't shout or chase it. He simply raises his staff. Authority fills the air like thunder that doesn't need to strike to be heard. The wolf lowers its head, backing into the shadows. The lamb collapses where it stands, exhausted and ashamed. It expects anger. It expects to be scolded or ignored. Instead, the shepherd kneels down and gently lifts it into his arms. Its wool is tangled, stained, torn by thorns. It shakes, not from cold now, but from the shock of being held so tenderly after wandering so far. "I heard you," the shepherd whispers. "Before you even cried out, I knew where you were." He carries the lamb close to his chest, the rhythm of his heartbeat steady and strong. Each step is sure, even as night fully takes over the land. The lamb presses its head against him, breathing in the familiar scent of safety. But even as it rests, it wonders, why would he come? Why would he leave the flock, the 99 safe ones, for just one stubborn, foolish sheep? The shepherd walks on, not answering aloud, but his arms are the answer. The fold appears in the distance, warm with lamplight. The gate opens, the flock stirs, but there is no judgment, only relief. The shepherd sets the lamb down gently on soft grass. Its legs are weak, but it is home. Though safe, a quiet question lingers in the air. What kind of love would go so far, through danger and darkness, just to bring one lost soul back? Soon, that question will be answered, not with words, but with the story of the shepherd who goes out alone to search for the lost, no matter the cost. Night settles again across the hills. Inside the fold, the flock sleeps peacefully, gathered close where the walls guard them from wind and wandering. Lantern light flickers softly, and the air is still. Yet the shepherd remains awake. His eyes scan the flock, quietly counting, each face, each heartbeat. Then he pauses. One is missing. Not a nameless sheep, not just a number. He knows who. He remembers the sound of its bleat, the way it walks, the exact pattern of white on its wool. And though 99 remains safe, his heart is not at rest. Most would say, stay where it's safe. One is not worth the risk. But this shepherd is not like the hired hand who runs when wolves come. He doesn't calculate worth the way the world does. He stands, takes up his staff, and opens the gate. The night beyond is sharp and merciless, cold biting through fabric, shadows stirring with unseen threats. Still, he steps into it, no hesitation, no fear, only love that refuses to leave even one behind. Wind howls across the mountains. He calls out, not with panic, but with a voice clear and steady, like a lighthouse in fog. Come to me. You are not forgotten. His voice carries over ravines and jagged cliffs, over thorn-covered hills where feet bleed easily. He follows tracks faintly pressed in the dirt, broken twigs, crushed grass. The path is not easy. It twists through places no shepherd should willingly walk, yet he does. Hours pass. The lantern he carries burns low, but his resolve does not. The stones cut, the terrain bruises. He keeps going. Finally, beneath a withered tree tangled in thorns, he finds it. The lost one lies silent, sides rising faintly with shallow breaths. Its wool is torn, coated with dirt and blood. Its eyes are half open, too weak to cry out anymore. It doesn't try to run. It has no strength left to resist. It only trembles, as if expecting punishment. But no anger comes. The shepherd kneels in the dust. He speaks the same way he did at the gate, softly, like a lullaby. There you are. I've come for you. With gentle hands, he breaks the thorns that have trapped it. Each thorn digs into his skin, drawing red across his palms, yet he doesn't stop. Slowly, carefully, he lifts the lamb into his arms. Its head rests against his chest, hearing the steady beat of his heart, strong, unwavering. He doesn't scold. He doesn't say, "Look what you've done." He only holds it tighter. Then he rises and begins the long walk back. The path home is darker than before. Wolves watch from the shadows, eyes glowing, but they do not approach. They sense something in the shepherd's stance, an authority not born of force but of love, unafraid of danger. Wind rages, branches snap, the climb is steep, but the shepherd never loosens his grip. Not once does he consider placing the lamb down to rest his arms. Even if he stumbles, he falls in a way that shields it, taking the weight of every stone himself. Dawn finally begins to touch the horizon, painting the sky with pale light. The fold appears in the distance, quiet and safe. Some of the sheep inside stir, sensing his return before they see him. He steps through the gate, but instead of setting the lamb down in silence, he calls out with joy that fills the morning air. Rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep. There is no whispering of shame, no pointing, no blame, only celebration. The shepherd does not mention how far it wandered or how much it cost him to retrieve it. All he sees now is that it is home. He places it on soft grass, washes the dirt from its wool, and tends to every wound. The lamb is tired, but safe, broken, but carried, unworthy, but loved all the same. And yet, as its eyes slowly close in the warmth of morning light, it does not know that this rescue is only the beginning, because the shepherd hasn't just saved it from darkness. He is about to show what it means to be carried, healed, and restored completely. The world is quiet in the early morning, the kind of quiet that follows a long night of searching. Mist clings to the grass, softening the sharp edges of the hills. In the shepherd's arms, the lamb barely stirs. Its body is cold, scraped and bruised, its breathing faint. It tries to stand, to move on its own, but its legs refuse. It simply collapses again, small and exhausted. The shepherd doesn't scold or sigh in disappointment. He kneels beside the trembling creature and gently gathers it into his arms. Dirt and blood stain his robe, but he doesn't hesitate. He lifts the lamb, placing it across his shoulders, its weight resting against his neck, its heartbeat trembling against his skin. His grip is firm but kind, hands holding the lamb's legs securely so it won't slip. From this height, the lamb sees the world differently. The hills no longer vast and threatening, but peaceful, safe beneath the watchful eye of the one who carries it. He walks, not hurriedly, not with frustration, but with a quiet strength. Every step is steady. Every breath is measured. The ground is rocky, and his feet meet thorns and jagged stones, but he never shifts the lamb's weight away from his shoulders. He bears it without complaint. With every movement, the lamb feels warmth spreading through its battered body. Its breathing begins to slow, no longer frantic but calm, syncing with the shepherd's own heartbeat. It rests its head against him, eyelids heavy, finally allowing itself to sleep in safety. The shepherd walks on. Sometimes he sings, soft songs older than the mountains, songs that speak of mercy, of patience, of love that does not give up. The words drift like morning fog, wrapping gently around the lamb's weary heart. Soon the fold appears ahead, bathed in golden sunlight. The flock, still within the walls, lifts their heads. They see the shepherd first, then they see the small figure on his shoulders. There is no murmuring, no judgment, just quiet relief. The shepherd enters the fold and kneels once more. Carefully, he lifts the lamb down and places it on soft grass. It stands unsteadily for a moment before its legs buckle again. The shepherd stays close, his hand resting gently on its back. He cleans its wounds, not with harshness, but with water and oil. Every touch is intentional, careful. When the lamb flinches, he pauses. When it shivers, he wraps it in his cloak. He doesn't rush the healing. He simply stays. Nearby, some of the older sheep begin to gather. One by one, they draw close, not to stare, but to be near. The air fills with quiet joy, a gentle peace that feels like sunlight after rain. The shepherd smiles, not because the lamb is strong again, but because it is found. He speaks not to the lamb, but to the flock, and perhaps to the heavens themselves. Rejoice with me, the one who was lost has been found. There is celebration, not loud, not wild, but deep, like the slow swelling of music that rises from the heart rather than the lips. It isn't about perfection. It's about being home. The lamb watches him, unsure how to understand this kind of love, a love that searches through night and storm, a love that carries instead of condemns, a love that rejoices not because of what the lamb did, but simply because it is no longer lost. As the sun climbs higher, warmth spreads across the fold. The shepherd remains beside the lamb, never once stepping away. He feeds it, lets it drink, lets it rest. His presence is constant, unearned, unwavering. Yet deep within, the lamb senses there is something more to this joy, something not just felt on earth, but heard in heaven. A celebration bigger than this field, louder than any human praise. Because if one wandering lamb brings such joy here, what must it sound like elsewhere? The shepherd lifts his gaze, as though listening to music the lamb cannot yet hear. His eyes reflect that unseen joy, and soon the story will rise to meet it, not with silence, but with wonder at a love that celebrates the return of even one soul. Morning sunlight spreads across the sheepfold like a gentle blessing. The air is still, yet filled with an unspoken excitement. Like creation itself is holding its breath in joy, the shepherd has returned with the lost lamb, and the entire flock senses it. No voice announces it, no trumpet sounds. But the atmosphere changes. All is warmer, brighter, safer. He carries the lamb into the heart of the fold where the ground is soft and the water flows clear. Without hesitation, without a single word of blame, he declares, "Rejoice with me. The one who was lost is now found." His voice doesn't carry anger or disappointment, only relief, deep and genuine, as though his heart has been waiting to exhale. Some of the sheep move closer, gentle eyes watching as the lamb lies wrapped in the shepherd's cloak. They do not whisper of its failure. They do not step away in judgment. Instead, one lays beside it in silence. Another nuzzles its face softly as if to say, "You're home." That's all that matters. The shepherd prepares a place of rest. Fresh water, green grass, oil for wounds. Not because the lamb earned it, but because it belongs to him. Nearby, a small fire is lit. Bread is warmed. The shepherd breaks it with his own scarred hands, and though the sheep cannot understand the work of his heart fully, they feel the kindness in every gesture. It is not a celebration of perfection, but of return. And yet, not everyone understands. At the edge of the fold, one of the older sheep stands quietly, watching. Its wool is clean. Its path has never wandered far from the shepherd. It has obeyed. It has stayed. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet question forms. Why such a celebration for one who left? Why so much joy for one who failed? The shepherd meets its eyes. He doesn't rebuke. He doesn't compare. His gaze simply holds truth. All my sheep matter, not because of what they've done, but because they are mine. The older sheep looks away, not in defiance, but in confusion. Grace is harder to accept when you've tried so hard to be worthy. Still, the celebration continues. The shepherd sings again, and his voice fills the air like wind through olive trees. It is gentle, it is strong, it is full. And above them, though unseen, heaven listens and answers. For every soul once lost and now carried home, the angels rejoice louder than storms, brighter than sunrise. Their joy isn't quiet, it isn't hesitant, it is fierce because love has won once more. The lamb, now resting in the tender grass, lifts its head. It hears the shepherd's heartbeat before it hears his words. You are safe. You are mine. Rest now. It closes its eyes. But though peace settles softly in the fold, a whisper moves beyond the walls. There are voices outside that do not echo joy. There are hearts beyond that do not celebrate mercy. Some call him reckless. Some call him foolish. Some say, no true shepherd leaves 99 for one. They do not understand. The shepherd does not seek applause. He does not chase approval. He only seeks the lost. He only loves the broken, and no matter how many reject his way, he will not change his heart. Even now, beyond the fold, other voices rise, harsh and sharp like stones in a clenched fist. They do not sing of mercy. They question it. They do not celebrate healing. They resist it. But for now, inside the fold, there is stillness. Sheep rest. The lamb breathes evenly. And the shepherd watches over them all, his staff beside him, his eyes soft but alert. The night will come again. Wolves will prowl. Stranger voices will call for attention. Some will listen. Some will leave. Not everyone wants a shepherd who rescues, forgives, and rejoices like this. And that is where the next part of the story begins, not with celebration, but with resistance. For a while, peace rests over the fold like a soft blanket. The sheep graze freely. The once wandering lamb now lies near the shepherd's feet, warmed by his nearness. His voice is calm, familiar, like the rhythm of a heartbeat, steady, trustworthy. It speaks of rest, of safety, of belonging, but not every voice is like his. One evening, as shadows stretch long across the fields, a distant call drifts through the air. It sounds similar, gentle, almost soothing. It does not threaten, it does not shout. It simply whispers, "Come." There is a sweeter pasture beyond these walls. There is freedom beyond his watchful eye. The lamb lifts its head. It isn't the shepherd's voice, yet something about it pulls. The older sheep hear it too. Some ignore it, recognizing the hollow tone. Others glance toward the gate, a flicker of doubt crossing their eyes. The shepherd watches quietly. He does not panic. He does not raise his voice. He simply calls his sheep by name, his tone unwavering, rich with truth. Those who know him, who have listened closely, who have rested against his heartbeat, remain still. But those who only stayed near him with their feet and not with their hearts feel a stirring, a restlessness. Why stay behind walls when the world beyond seems wider? Why listen to one voice when others promise more? The shepherd rises slowly and walks toward the gate, eyes scanning the hills. His gaze sharpens, not in fear, but in warning. "The sheep know my voice," he says softly. "A stranger they will not follow." Yet the stranger's whisper grows bolder. It no longer stays distant. It moves closer to the stone walls, curling through the cracks like cold wind. It speaks of independence. It speaks of hidden truth. It speaks of a shepherd who limits rather than loves. He keeps you here because he fears what you might discover without him. Some sheep shuffle uneasily. The lamb feels its heartbeat faster, confused by the nearness of the lie. The shepherd steps forward, placing himself between the flock and the unseen voice. There is no anger in him, only a fierce, protective calm. His voice cuts through the noise, not louder but clearer. "I am the good shepherd. I lay down my life for the sheep. Thieves climb in another way. They come only to steal, kill, and destroy." The stranger falls silent for a moment, but not for long. A distant howl rises in the dark. The scent of danger rides on the wind. The sheep huddle closer. The lamb presses against the shepherd's robe, trembling, not from doubt now, but from the chill of the night that slowly creeps in. Clouds gather above the hills. Wind begins to whip through the olive trees, harsh and unkind. The peaceful field that once felt like home now seems exposed. The shepherd stands firm at the entrance of the fold, staff in hand, eyes fixed on the horizon where darkness swells. Inside the fold, the sheep whisper quietly, "Why does the storm come?" If we are safe with him, why do wolves still roam? Why do stranger voices still call? The shepherd does not answer with explanations. He answers with presence. He stands, unmovable. Lightning flickers on the edge of the sky, illuminating twisted branches and jagged stones. The thunder follows, rolling through the valley like a warning. The stranger's voice fades for now, replaced by the rising storm. But even as the wind roars and the first drops of rain fall, there is no panic in him. He knows what waits in the shadows. He knows the wolves that prowl when the night grows darkest. The lamb looks up and finds his eyes, not afraid, not uncertain. And suddenly, everything feels different. The storm is real. The danger is near. But so is he. The night deepens. Wolves emerge from the tree line, silent and patient, and standing between them and the flock is the one who will not run. This is where the story moves, not into peace, but into battle. Not to quiet fields, but to roaring winds and unseen enemies. Yet even here in the rising storm, the shepherd remains, because love that rescues also protects. Love that carries also stands guard. The storm breaks fully after sunset. Wind howls through the trees like a living thing, tugging at branches and rattling the stone walls of the fold. Rain begins to fall, not in gentle drops, but in hard, cold sheets that sting the skin. The sheep huddle together, silent, pressed close in the darkness. Thunder rolls across the hills. Somewhere deep in the night, a long, chilling sound rises. A wolf's cry, then another and another. They are close. The flock trembles. Their instincts tell them to run, but there is nowhere to go. Beyond the walls lies open land, unseen cliffs, and hungry shadows. Within the fold, safety seems so fragile, like a candle flickering in the wind. But the shepherd does not move from his post. He stands at the gate, soaked by rain, cloak clinging to his shoulders, staff in his hand. Lightning flashes across the sky, and for a moment his silhouette is etched against the storm. Firm, unshaken, his eyes scan the darkness, not in fear, but in vigilance. A growl echoes from the tree line. The wolves prowl just beyond the light, sleek bodies, matted fur, teeth glinting when the lightning cracks. Their eyes burn through the storm, fixed on the shepherd, then shifting to the sheep behind him. They do not rush. They wait. They test the boundaries. One steps forward. It snarls low, muscles tensed, but the shepherd does not raise his staff yet. Instead, he speaks, not to the wolves, but to the sheep behind him. Do not fear. They hear his voice even as the wind screams. It carries peace like a fire in the cold. The lamb, the same small one once carried on his shoulders, presses closer to the other sheep. Its heart pounds, but it watches him. If he is not afraid, maybe they don't have to be either. Then the first wolf lunges. With a swift motion, the shepherd steps forward. The staff in his hand strikes the ground with a force that echoes like thunder. The wolf halts, claws tearing into the mud, teeth bared. But it does not advance. The others begin to circle. Some slink along the outer wall. Some wait for a gap. Some hope the fold will break from within. That fear will scatter the sheep and make them easy prey. Because wolves know, frightened sheep are easier to devour than protected ones. Rain pours harder. The world narrows to the pounding of hooves against the earth, the sharp scent of fear, and the unwavering figure at the gate. The wolves strike again, this time more than one. Their bodies leap like shadows cutting through rain. The shepherd meets them, rod in one hand, staff in the other. Wood cracks against teeth, claws scrape stone. His robe is torn. Blood mixes with rain, but the gate holds. Not one wolf gets through. The sheep watch with wide eyes. Some weep, some tremble, but none run. They stay, not because they are brave, but because they know who stands before them. The storm rages on, but slowly, the assault breaks. The wolves retreat, not defeated in strength, but in resolve. They slink back into the forest, their cries fading into the distance. The pack disperses into the night, seeking easier prey elsewhere. Finally, only the rain remains. The shepherd leans on his staff, breathing steadily. His hands are scratched, his robe torn, but his eyes are calm. The sheep do not yet understand the full cost of his protection, but they feel its weight. They are alive because he stood where they couldn't. He turns and walks back into the fold. Not a single sheep is missing. The lamb steps forward, hesitant, looking up at him with eyes full of both awe and confusion. How could he endure all that? For them, for one fold of trembling sheep? He kneels, placing a gentle hand on the lamb's head. "You are mine," he whispers. The storm begins to quiet. The wind settles into a soft breeze. Rain slows to a drizzle, and though darkness remains, it feels different now, less like a threat, more like a reminder of what they have survived under his care. The sheep lie down again, weary but safe. The shepherd remains awake, seated near the gate, watching the horizon with silent strength. And as the clouds begin to part, the first hint of dawn appears in the distance. Not bright, not loud, but steady. Morning is coming, and with it, something even more comforting than protection, the gentle peace of his presence guiding them to rest. Dawn breaks gently over the hills. The storm has passed, leaving droplets of water glistening on blades of grass like tiny jewels. The air smells of rain and quiet earth. The fold is still, tired, but alive. No sheep was lost to the night. Not one. The shepherd stands just beyond the gate, his cloak still damp, his hands still marked from the battle. His rod rests against a rock, his staff beside him. To anyone else, they might just look like tools of a shepherd, but to the sheep, they mean everything: safety, rescue, authority, and peace. The lamb, now awake and breathing steadily, watches him. It notices the splinters in the shepherd's staff from striking the ground, the dried blood on his knuckles, the quiet strength in his posture. He doesn't boast. He doesn't speak of what he endured. He simply stands watch. Some sheep draw near to him. They do not speak, but their presence is its own form of thanksgiving. One rests beside his feet. Another lightly presses its head against his staff. The shepherd sits, letting them come close. There is no tension now, only stillness. Sunlight warms the stones. He gently lifts the staff, holding it upright as he speaks, not in a sermon, but in a whisper only the flock hears. "My rod and my staff, they comfort you." The lamb tilts its head. It has heard those words before, but today they are not just part of a psalm whispered at night. They are real. They are alive. The rod, solid, strong, carved from sturdy wood, is used to defend, to strike wolves, to drive away thieves, to protect. The staff, curved at the top, worn smooth by years of use, is for rescue, to pull a wandering sheep from thorns, to lift one from a ravine, to guide gently when feet stray. Same shepherd, two tools, one purpose, to keep them safe. The lamb remembers the weight of his shoulders when it was carried. It remembers his heartbeat, steady even in danger. And now, watching him hold the rod and staff with confidence and tenderness, something inside the lamb settles. Fear loosens its grip. Anxiety, once heavy, becomes quiet. The shepherd rises and moves among the flock, his staff tapping softly against the earth. He checks each sheep, inspecting wounds, cleaning scrapes, binding legs that limped through the storm. His touch is neither rushed nor rough. He treats every injury as if it matters deeply to him. For a while the world is peaceful. Wolves are gone. Storm clouds have broken apart. The sun climbs higher, drying the earth and warming the stones. The sheep begin to graze again, not anxiously, always looking up, but calmly, chewing slowly, trusting he is near. The lamb follows closely as he leads them toward a nearby stream. Water flows gently over smooth rocks, clear and cold. The shepherd crouches beside it, cupping water in his hands and letting it trickle over the lamb's muzzle. It drinks without fear. Further ahead lies a meadow, soft grass, dotted with wildflowers swaying gently in the morning breeze. The flock spreads out, feeding quietly. Some lie down in the grass, eyes half closed. For the first time in what feels like forever, rest doesn't feel dangerous. The shepherd stands at the edge of the meadow, staff in hand, watching. He's not just a rescuer in storms. He is not only a warrior against wolves. He is also the keeper of peace, the one who makes rest possible. His rod confronts danger. His staff restores what danger broke. The lamb lowers itself into the grass, breathing deeply. The world feels different, not because the hills have changed, but because the shepherd has proven he will not leave. It looks at him once more. He meets its gaze and gives a gentle nod, as if to say, "You can rest now. I'm still here." And finally, the lamb does. Its eyes close, not from exhaustion, but from comfort. Around it, the flock rests too. The shepherd remains awake, leaning on his staff, scanning the horizon. Rest is no longer a risk. It is a gift, and soon, in this stillness, something new will happen. Not danger, not fear, but a deeper kind of peace. One found not just in safety, but in green pastures and still waters that only the shepherd can lead them to. The storm has passed. The wolves are gone. Morning sunlight stretches softly across the land, touching each stone and blade of grass with warmth. The shepherd rises, his staff in hand, and calls the flock gently. There is no urgency in his voice, only calm certainty. The sheep follow, not out of fear, but trust. Beyond the fold lies a path soft with dew. The shepherd leads them slowly, allowing the weak to keep pace, allowing the lambs to rest when needed. The once wandering lamb walks beside his feet, no longer afraid of falling behind. Every so often, the shepherd reaches down and rests his hand on its back. No words, just quiet reassurance. The journey is not far, but it feels like stepping into another world. Ahead, a meadow opens wide, covered in green that sways gently in the breeze. Wildflowers dot the landscape, white, purple, gold, lifting their heads to the sun. The grass is soft, untouched, fresh like new hope. The flock hesitates for a moment, as though beauty this gentle cannot be real. But the shepherd steps forward and speaks. Rest here. The sheep scatter through the pasture, no longer rushed or terrified, but calm. Some lay down immediately, pressing into the grass. Others graze slowly, savoring the sweetness of each mouthful. The lamb breathes deeply, and for the first time, the air doesn't smell like fear. It smells like rain-washed earth, fresh grass, and sunlight. Nearby, a stream winds quietly through the meadow, clear as glass, flowing over smooth stones. The shepherd guides the lamb to its edge. The water isn't loud or forceful like a river in flood. It's gentle, still enough to reflect the sky, safe enough to drink without trembling. He kneels, cups water with his hands, and brings it to the lamb's lips. Coolness touches its tongue, and it drinks slowly. No rush, no panic. The shepherd smiles, not wide, not loud, but a smile that says, "This is how it was always meant to be." He leads the rest of the flock to the stream. They drink freely. They lie beside the quiet waters, breathing softly, eyes half closed in peace. The shepherd sits on a nearby rock, watching them with a heart that delights not only in saving, but in giving rest. No thunder, no wolves, no stranger's voice, only stillness. And yet this peace is not empty. It is not silence from fear, but a silence filled with presence, a silence where hearts learn to slow down, where wounds begin to close, where the shepherd's voice can be heard in the quiet, not just in crisis. Hours drift by like clouds. The lamb lays in the grass, the gentle hum of bees in the distance, the warmth of the sun across its wool. It glances toward the shepherd, who sits beneath an olive tree, staff resting against his shoulder, eyes watching over every sheep as if each one were the only one. In that moment, the lamb understands something new. The shepherd doesn't only guard in danger. He also delights in giving rest. His care is not only in battle, but in peace. He is the shepherd of storms and the shepherd of still waters. As evening approaches, the sky is painted in soft colors, peach, lavender, faint gold. The flock is full, their thirst quenched, their fears quieted. Some rest beside the stream, others nestle into the grass, their breathing deep and steady. The shepherd rises once more, not to drive them away, but to walk among them, checking hooves, touching foreheads, speaking softly. His presence brings peace deeper than sleep. The lamb leans against his leg, eyes heavy with comfort, not exhaustion. Yet even in this stillness, the shepherd glances toward the distant hills. His eyes see beyond the meadow, to places where shadows still stretch, where darkness waits in silence. He knows this peace will not last forever, not because it is weak, but because the journey isn't yet complete. But for now, the flock rests, and rest is sacred. The shepherd gently lifts the lamb and carries it back toward the fold. The flock follows, calm and unafraid. Stars begin to appear in the sky, one by one, as the meadow fades behind them. What lies ahead is not yet known. The path will soon descend into valleys where light does not reach, where fear presses close again. But the lamb has felt his shoulders, heard his heartbeat, drunk from still waters, and rested in green pastures. And now, even when the path grows dark, It knows who walks ahead. The days of green pastures and still waters begin to fade into memory as the path changes beneath their feet. The air grows colder, heavier. The sun, once warm on their backs, now hides behind distant mountains, casting long shapes that crawl across the land. The shepherd leads them forward, not back to the fold, not farther into the meadow, but into a narrow valley where light struggles to enter. The sheep follow closely. Steep cliffs rise on either side, jagged and dark. The sky overhead narrows into a thin strip of pale gray. Wind whistles through the stone like a whisper that doesn't belong to any living voice. Even the birds are silent here. The lamb hesitates at the entrance. This place feels wrong, too quiet, too still. No soft grass, no singing water, only dust, stone, and shadows that stretch longer than they should. But the shepherd steps forward without fear. His staff taps the ground with assurance. He doesn't push them into the valley. He simply walks, and because he walks, they follow. Their hooves crunch softly on the path. Every sound echoes. Farther in, the light fades even more. It becomes hard to tell how much time has passed. Morning, noon, evening. The valley swallows the hours. The lamb presses closer to the shepherd's side, each breath slow, careful. Somewhere ahead, a cold mist rises from the ground, clinging to their legs like ghostly fingers. Fear returns, not loud like a storm, but quiet like a whisper in the heart. What if this is where he leaves? What if his protection stops at the edge of this shadow? The shepherd says nothing at first. His presence remains the answer. He walks ahead, staff in hand, rod resting against his shoulder. Every so often, he turns his head, not to check the path, but to look at them. His eyes hold the same steady calm they've always had. And though nothing in the valley changes, something in the lamb does. It keeps walking, but the shadows deepen. The walls rise higher. The path narrows until only one sheep can pass at a time. The air thickens with a silence that feels alive. Above them, clouds gather, blocking what little light remains. The world dims into gray, then into near darkness. Then the sound begins. Not a storm, not wolves, but something worse. The kind of silence broken only by the sound of one's own heartbeat. The kind of quiet that makes every memory of safety feel distant. The flock shivers. Some begin to cry softly. The shepherd stops. He places his staff firmly on the ground. His voice breaks the stillness, not loud but solid. Even though you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you will fear no evil, he says, for I am with you. His words settle on them like a blanket, warm, heavy, real. The lamb looks up. It sees the rod that struck wolves, the staff that pulled it from thorns. It remembers the strength of his shoulders, the peace of his embrace. And the fear, though still present, loses its power. They move forward again. Then, from somewhere deep within the valley, a sound rises, low, distant, but growing. Like a mournful howl carried through the rocks. The lamb tenses. The flock presses together. Figures begin to move in the mist, not wolves, something larger, shapes that don't fully form in the eye but carve fear into the heart, shadows of the past, voices of failure, memories of pain. They don't touch the sheep, they only whisper, reminding them of every weakness, every sin, every moment they doubted or ran. The lamb's legs weaken, tears gather, but before the fear can swallow it, the shepherd steps forward. He raises his rod, not in panic, but in authority. The shadows recoil. His voice rings out, stronger this time. You belong to me. No darkness can claim what I have redeemed. And just like that, the whispers fade. The shadows fall back. Silence returns. Not the cold kind, but a clean, sacred quiet. The flock breathes again. The path continues. The valley is not over yet. The night is still around them. But the shepherd walks ahead, and the sheep know now they will not face this darkness alone. What waits deeper in the valley will test them again. There will be moments where the ground crumbles and the edge of danger lies only a breath away. But just beyond that edge is a story not of fear, but of rescue. The valley does not end with a doorway to bright fields. It opens instead into a wide basin of stone, an amphitheater carved by wind and time. Cliffs stand like watchmen onto every side. Shadows perch along ledges, patient and hungry. The air is still, the kind of stillness that listens for a heartbeat. Here, of all places, the shepherd stops. The flock waits, pressed close. Their eyes search the rim for movement. Their ears catch the smallest scrape of claw on rock. They are ready to keep walking, to find any path that leads away. But the shepherd kneels and unpacks a bundle from his cloak. He spreads a woven cloth on the ground. He sets out bread, fresh, still warm, as if the valley itself surrendered its chill for a moment. He sets a simple cup at the center and fills it until the surface trembles. He breaks the bread with scarred hands and lays portions in a circle large enough for all. A table, here, not after danger, not beyond it, in the middle of it. The sheep do not move at first. It feels wrong to kneel when cliffs glare down and enemies breathe on the edges of sight. But the shepherd's face holds a peace that does not bargain with fear. He looks at them the way dawn looks at night, not arguing, simply arriving. He gestures for them to come. The lamb steps first. It kneels and takes bread gently from his palm. The taste is soft, filling, kind. One by one, the flock joins. They lower their heads, not in defeat, but in trust. A quiet defiance against the teeth in the dark. Chewing becomes prayer. Swallowing becomes courage. Breath by breath, the panic loosens its knot. Around them, movement stirs along the ridge. Eyes blink from shadow. Shapes pace the rim and test the rock for paths downward. But an unseen boundary holds, a ring that the enemy cannot cross. The shepherd has not only brought food, he has drawn a line. It is not chalk on stone or fire in a trench. It is his word. It is his presence. He sits among them and breaks more bread. Eat, he says, and the word is larger than the valley. You are safe with me. The cup passes from muzzle to muzzle, never emptying, never spilling. When it reaches the lamb, the surface still trembles with fullness. It drinks and feels warmth spread through every place the cold tried to claim. The shepherd smiles, not the smile of someone who hopes this will be enough, but of someone who knows it is. Above, a pebble skitters. A shape crouches, ready to leap. The shepherd does not even turn his head. He lifts the rod and lays it across his knees. The enemy waits, measuring distance, and then thinks better of it. Hunger prowls, but permission does not come. The sheep eat until fear no longer tastes strong on their tongues. When bread has quieted their bodies and the cup has steadied their hearts, the shepherd rises. He walks the circle, stopping at each one, as if every sheep were the only sheep. He studies eyes dulled by sleepless nights, legs scraped raw by the narrow way, shoulders sore from bracing against dread. He does not rush. He does not miss anyone. He pauses at the lamb. Up close, the valley has left its marks, thin cuts along the legs, burrs. Tangled deep in wool, a bruise dark as evening near the shoulder. The shepherd's expression softens, and the lamb feels seen in a way that makes it breathe a little deeper. He places his hand over the bruise, light as sunlight, steady as stone. I see where it hurts, he says. The words carry more than comfort. They carry certainty, the promise that what pain named he will answer. Along the rim, shadows grow restless. Their patience thins as the flock refuses to scatter. This place makes no sense to them. A feast where fear should rule. Rest where running would seem wise. Worship where survival once dictated silence. It is an insult to the dark that the sheep would choose joy here. The shepherd is not insulted. He is pleased. He beckons them to lift their heads, not in pride, but in gratitude. They do. Some with tears that finally find permission to fall. Some with a sigh that sounds like laying down a burden. The valley hears what it was never meant to hold: thanksgiving. He gathers the cloth, but leaves the circle shaped by bread and cup, as if to mark the ground with memory. Then he reaches into his cloak again and brings out a small flask, capped with simple cork, smelling of crushed leaves and clean earth, oil. The lamb watches the light catch on the lip of the flask. Even before the shepherd speaks, its body leans toward him, the way a flower leans toward sun. The others shuffle closer, quiet as snow. The enemies on the ridge snarl without moving. They cannot stop what comes next. The shepherd removes the cork. The scent lifts into the air, green and bright, like a field after rain. He pours a little into his palm and warms it between his hands. Then, one by one, he moves to each sheep. He touches wounds, and where oil meets skin, pain exhales. He untangles burrs with patience that never frays. He presses soothing circles into cramped muscles and whispers each name as if returning it to its owner. When he reaches the lamb, he lowers to a knee. "Let me tend what the valley tried to claim," he says. And there, in the middle of stone and watching eyes, he begins to anoint. The shepherd holds the small flask in his hands as if it were light gathered from morning. The scent rises, green and bright, like crushed olive leaves in rain. Around him, the flock is quiet, bellies warm with bread, hearts steady from the shared cup. Along the ridge, watchers linger in the shadows, unable to enter, forced to witness tenderness they cannot imitate. He begins with the ones nearest, a gentle touch to a torn ear. Oil glistens, then sinks like warmth into wintered skin. The sheep closes its eyes, its breathing slows. Where the valley drew blood, the shepherd leaves comfort. Where the path hardened muscles into knots, his fingers work patient circles until the body remembers softness. He doesn't hurry. Names fall from his lips like blessings. Each one is spoken as if it were being given back, restored from the mouths of fear that once tried to rename them lost, weak, too far gone. He calls them what they truly are, his. When he comes to the lamb, it is already leaning toward him, the way a thirsty root leans toward water it cannot see. He kneels and tips the flask. A bright thread of oil pools in his palm, catching light even in this stony place. He cups the lamb's face, steady but feather gentle. Let me tend what the valley tried to claim. He touches the tender bruise at the shoulder first. Heat loosens, ache sighs. The lamb's breath trembles, then lengthens into something like peace. The shepherd moves to the small cuts along the legs where thorns held fast. He works burr by burr from the wool, never pulling quick, never wincing at the mess. When pain flinches, he pauses. When fear tightens, he waits. Healing here happens at the speed of trust. He pours a little more. With his thumb, he anoints the lamb's forehead, drawing a line that is more than a mark. It is belonging made visible. You are mine, he says again, and the words feel like a roof being set back on a house the storm once stripped. He anoints the eyes. See as I see. Vision clears, not just the world of rock and distance, but the inner world of memory where shadows have been louder than truth. Scenes that once shouted shame now soften under a brighter light. The valley happened, the bruises are real, but they are no longer the whole story. He anoints the ears. Hear my voice, the echo of the stranger's whisper, the one that promised sweeter pastures far from his gaze, loses its color, like ink washed thin by rain. The lamb hears again the tone that steadied nights and stilled fear. Not loud, not demanding, simply certain. He anoints the feet. Walk with me. The path will not always be meadow. There will be more stone, more narrow ways. But these steps will not walk alone. Oil warms into the muscles and tendons, and the small tremor of dread, what if I fail again, finds itself held out, not condemned. He anoints the heart. No hand reaches into a place more guarded than this. He does not force open what grief has braced shut. He rests his palm and waits, the way a father waits at a door he already owns. When the lamb allows, he presses gently. The ache that words never held unknots, thread by thread, as if the heart were handing him all the fragments it gathered in the dark. Regret, fear, hidden tears, the silent belief that love might one day run out. Into that open place, he pours mercy. You are not loved because you are useful, he whispers. You are loved because you are mine. The lamb lowers its head until its forehead meets his wrist. The ridge above grows restless, hunger pacing, eyes narrowing, as if tenderness were a language they do not speak. The shepherd pays them no mind. His focus does not scatter. He moves again through the flock, and wherever he goes, stillness follows like shade in noon heat. He anoints the old wounds too, the ones from before this valley, scars long faded but still tender when touched by certain memories. He honors history without letting it rule. Where bitterness tried to harden, he makes room for softness that does not forget and does not surrender to the past either. Oil glows on wool, bright as small stars caught in hair. Some sheep begin to drowse, heads tucked to knees, lulled by the slow work of his hands. Others watch with eyes bright and wet, letting relief find its way in after years of holding strong. The lamb feels lighter, not empty, but spacious, like rooms aired out after a long winter. Pain has not been denied, it has been met. The shepherd corks the flask and slips it back into his cloak. He does not say, "Now you are strong enough for anything." He says something deeper. "I am with you." Strength that depends on presence, not performance, settles over the flock like a mantle made for every shoulder. He gathers them with a glance. The table remains behind, a circle of crumbs and memory, proof that safety can bloom in hostile ground. The valley has not changed its name, but it no longer decides who they are. The shepherd turns, and the flock rises with him. The lamb stands too, surprised at how steady its legs feel and how quiet its fears have become under the weight of his kindness. They begin to move. The basin of stone does not hold them. It has given them something instead: wounds tended, hearts steadied, names respoken. As they follow, the lamb walks a little nearer to the edges where stragglers hesitate, nudging gently. The way comfort learned becomes comfort given. Somewhere beyond these cliffs, there will be fields again and strangers again, moments of courage and moments of need. What has been poured into them is not meant to be hoarded. Love that heals becomes hands that help. Voices once unsure learn to say what they have heard. You belong. You are seen. Come and be tended. The shepherd's staff taps a quiet rhythm on the path ahead. The flock gathers into its familiar sway, and the lamb, freshly anointed, senses that rest is not the end of this story. It is the strength from which the next steps will be taken, for there are others yet to be found, and a shepherd who delights to send healed hearts into the wide world with his name on their lips. The path from the valley winds upward, no longer shrouded in darkness but still marked by stone and memory. The sheep walk with a new steadiness, not because the journey has grown easier, but because the shepherd walks ahead and their wounds have been touched by his hands. The lamb, the one once carried on his shoulders, moves now with quiet strength, not bold, not loud, but no longer trembling. Every few steps it glances back, not in fear, but in awareness. Some sheep still limp, some still lower their heads at sudden sounds. Healing is real, but it does not erase the memory of shadows. The shepherd knows this. He walks at a pace that kindness determines, not urgency. At the edge of the cliffs, the land opens once again. Not into green pastures or quiet streams, but into a rugged plateau where wind sweeps across dry grass and the horizon stretches like an unfinished promise. Here the shepherd stops. The flock circles near him, waiting. He turns, eyes resting not just on the strong but also the frail, not only on the confident but on the ones with hearts still learning to trust. His voice carries softly over the wind. You have been gathered. You have been healed. Now you will learn to guide. The lamb feels the words settle deep, like seed falling into open soil. Guide? It looks at its small hooves, then at the shepherd's scars. The memory of being lost still clings to its chest. How could I lead? I was the one who wandered. I was the one carried. But the shepherd's gaze remains fixed on it, full of knowing, yet full of grace. He walks toward the lamb and places his hand gently on its head, the same hand that once lifted it from thorns, that broke bread in the valley, that poured oil over its wounds. Those who have been rescued, he says quietly, are often the ones who recognize the cry of the lost. Around them, the flock is silent. He moves through them, speaking softly, not commands, but invitations. Some he calls to walk beside him. Others he teaches to watch the cliffs for danger. Some he asks to comfort the lambs, to remind them they are safe when thunder rises again. Each receives something not based on strength or rank, but on what grace has shaped within them. He pauses by a sheep with a scar across its muzzle, the one who nearly fell in the valley. You will help the fearful stand. To another, older and quiet, you will stay near the weary when their steps grow slow. To the lamb, you will walk near the edges. The ones who start to wander will hear your voice before they are too far. The lamb's heart beats fast, not from fear, but from the weight of being seen. It does not understand why the shepherd trusts it, but it understands this. If he asks, then he will walk beside. That night, under a sky pinned with stars, the flock rests on the plateau. The shepherd sits nearby, watching the horizon. The lamb lies awake, listening to the wind and remembering the sound of distant wolves, the cold of the valley, the warmth of his shoulders. It remembers how it felt to be found. The stars seem closer here. Somewhere in the darkness, the cry of a distant sheep echoes faintly through the hills. It is weak, almost lost to the wind, but it is real. The lamb lifts its head. Others hear it too. Ears flick, bodies stir. The shepherd is already standing. He doesn't have to explain. He looks at the flock, not with urgency, but with purpose. There are still others, he says, voice steady. Still hearts wandering, still feet caught in thorns. The lamb steps forward, not because it is fearless, but because it remembers what it is like to be alone in the dark. It moves closer, To him, ready to go wherever he leads. The shepherd rests his hand on its back, a quiet affirmation. The night air is cool, but no one shivers. They know now. Safety is not found in staying still, but in staying near him. And so the story of being rescued begins to become the story of rescuing. The once broken now learn to become bearers of healing. The ones who were carried now prepare to walk beside those yet unseen. The path ahead is not peaceful meadow. It is a road that leads outward, into towns, wilderness, and hearts hardened by fear. But the shepherd is already walking, and they follow. The morning air is thin and cool as the flock stands gathered around the shepherd at the edge of the high plateau. The sun has not yet risen, but a faint glow softens the line of the horizon. The world below lies quiet. Fields, distant villages, dusty roads stretching to places they've never walked. It looks peaceful from up here, but the shepherd's voice says otherwise. The harvest is plentiful, he says gently, but the laborers are few. The sheep listen, silent, steady, hearts remembering his care in storms, valleys, and still waters. They are no longer only wanderers or survivors. They are chosen, called. Yet his next words fall like a quiet weight over them. I'm sending you out as lambs among wolves. A hush deeper than fear settles over the flock, not because they doubt his strength, but because they know what wolves are capable of. They remember the eyes that watched from the ridge, the growls in the dark, the cold hunger that stalks the weak. To be sent toward that danger rather than away from it makes the ground beneath them feel different. But the shepherd doesn't send them out empty-handed. He places his hand on each of them, one by one. To some, he gives words to speak healing. To others, the courage to sit beside the broken. To a few, endurance for long roads and hard hearts. None of these gifts are weapons in the way the world understands. No swords, no shields, only his name, only his presence. Do not carry extra bags, he tells them. Do not depend on coin or comfort. Let your peace be your provision. Let my voice be your guide. The lamb, the one once carried on his shoulders, feels the weight of this calling. It remembers the cold of being lost, the sting of thorns, the safety of his arms. It understands now why he restored them, so they might help restore others. The shepherd leads them down from the plateau. The path is unfamiliar. Trees close in. Birds stir in branches above as the first sunlight spills across the land. They reach a crossroads where trails stretch into different directions, toward mountains, towns, rivers, and deserts. Here, he stops again. He splits them into smaller groups. Some he sends toward villages where doors are already open, others toward places where hearts are hard, where wolves roam freely. He looks to the lamb. You will walk with those who are weak, he says, softly. You will speak for those who have forgotten their worth, and if any refuse you, do not carry their rejection within you. Shake the dust from your feet. Keep walking. His voice doesn't promise ease. It promises presence. The flock steps forward in small clusters, hooves pressing into paths untouched by their kind. The lamb walks near the back, staying close to one who still limps slightly, unsure but willing. Each step forward feels like stepping out of shelter into storm. But there is no wind, no rain, only trust. Villages appear in the distance, rooftops catching morning light. Smoke rises from chimneys. Life stirs, unaware that travelers of the shepherd are approaching. Some will listen, some will mock, some will threaten, but they go. Not with fear ruling their steps, but with his peace resting in their chests. On the first road, they meet children playing in dust, a widow sweeping her doorstep, a man carrying water with tired arms. Some greet them kindly, offering bread. Others turn away, whispering. A few grit their teeth and watch in silence. They speak only what the shepherd taught: peace, repentance, hope. They touch the sick. They lift the fallen. They sit beside the lonely without needing to explain why. Sometimes they are welcomed. Sometimes doors close in their faces. That night, beneath olive trees, they rest. No fold, no walls, just open sky. The stars burn quiet and bright. The lamb lies awake, watching the constellations, wondering if the shepherd sees them from wherever he now walks. A breeze moves through the trees. You are not alone. The lamb doesn't know if it's memory or the shepherd's voice carried on wind, but either way, it believes it. And just when hearts begin to steady in their calling, the world begins to change. Not slowly, not softly. Whispers grow sharper. Some doors no longer close, they slam. Kindness turns to suspicion, resistance stiffens. For the first time, danger is not only in the wilderness, it is in people, in leaders who hate the shepherd's name, in those who feel threatened by grace they cannot control. The peace they carry will soon be met, not with hunger, but with hostility, and someone will pay the price. Night gathers in a garden where olive trees lean like old friends who have watched many storms. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of pressed leaves and earth. The shepherd kneels among the roots, his face turned to the ground. He prays, not with the calm of quiet mornings, but with the weight of a world pressing like a millstone on his chest. The place is called Gethsemane, oil press, and tonight its name feels true. A short distance away, the small circle of his closest ones struggle against sleep. Their eyes keep closing. Their hearts, too. The night is gentle on the surface, but something sharper than wind moves beneath it, a trembling in the soil as if the ground itself anticipates a blade. He rises and finds them drowsing, and his voice is tender even. Now, watch and pray. They mean to, they promise to, but their strength frays like old rope. Then torches appear at the garden's edge. Lantern light flickers between trunks. Footsteps. Metal. Voices low, hard. At the front of the crowd walks one who once leaned close at the table, one who once called him teacher and friend. He comes with a kiss, a sign meant for affection turned into a signal for violence. The shepherd does not flinch. He receives the kiss as though it were still friendship, as though betrayal itself could not pull love from his hands. Soldiers step forward, questions hiss like arrows. The shepherd answers with the same steady truth he has always spoken. When they reach to seize him, a sword flashes. Someone from his own tries to cut the night open with steel. An ear falls, a cry rises, but the shepherd stops the fight with a word and heals what anger broke. Even now, he mends. The flock panics. They scatter into the trees, feet slipping on damp earth, hearts hammering. The night swallows them in small, breathless pieces. What courage they carried feels brittle now. Fear does what wolves could not. It unthreads them from one another. Some hide behind stone walls. Some run down narrow streets. One follows at a distance, pulled by love, bound by dread. The shepherd is led away. Lanterns move through the city like a chain of small suns dragged across stone. He is taken from council to council, room to room, faces shifting, accusations piling like dry branches ready for fire. He stands silent more than he speaks, and when he does answer, his words bring no defense the world will accept. Truth is not welcome where power trembles. A courtyard waits outside one of the chambers. There, by a charcoal fire, a friend who swore he would never leave tries to stay close, tries to blend into a crowd that does not love what he loves. 3 times he is asked. 3 times fear speaks faster than faith. A rooster tears the night with its cry. The shepherd's eyes find him through the smoke. The look not a sword, not a sentence, only a wound that loves. The friend weeps where no one sees. Morning comes like a hard verdict. The shepherd is handed over. Soldiers mock what they do not understand. Robe on his shoulders, thorns pressed like a cruel crown, a reed placed in his hand as if he were a child playing at kings. They strike, they spit. The one who calmed seas is made to stand silent under a storm born from human hands. He does not answer insult with thunder. His quiet rebukes something louder than rage. Across the city, doors shut, windows watch, whispers say what the night carried. It's over. The ones who were sent like lambs among wolves hide in rooms where their own breath sounds too loud. Their memories are bright and unbearable. The table, the songs, the miracles, the promise. Now each memory feels fragile, like a lantern before wind. But the shepherd has not slipped from his path. He bears the weight given him, not as a victim of circumstance, but as one who chooses, steps measured, heart unturned, love unbroken. This was never a rescue that cost nothing. It was always going to cost him everything. The wolves did not take him. He yields himself. The flock does not understand. They only know the ache of absence, how silence can feel like an ocean, how the spaces he filled seem to widen with every passing moment. They huddle in small, hidden places. Some stare at the floor, hands clenched. Some rock gently, whispering prayers that break in the middle. Some cannot speak at all. The smallest among them, the once wandering lamb, lies curled near a shuttered window, listening for footsteps that do not come. And yet, woven through the terror of that day is something quieter, a thread that will not snap. Every word he spoke still hums beneath the noise. No one will snatch them out of my hand. I lay down my life of my own accord. After I am raised, the mind can barely hold it. The heart holds it anyway. By evening, the sky is darker than a storm and heavier than night. The city has seen the shepherd mocked and condemned. The earth seems to brace, as if creation itself knows a blow is about to fall. The scattered ones wait with breath held and eyes stinging, not daring to hope, not daring to look. What comes next will look like defeat to every gaze that measures by power and pain. But those who have eaten in the valley and been anointed in their wounds will one day look back and see it for what it is. Not the end of the shepherd's care, but the depth of it. Love is walking toward the place where love lays everything down. The hill rises like an altar no one asked for. The road to it is lined with faces, some hard as closed doors, some wet with grief that words can't carry. The shepherd walks that road not as one dragged, but as one who has decided. The air is bright and cruel, the sun high, the dust lifting with each step as if the ground itself cannot bear to hold him. They lay the beam upon his shoulders, the same shoulders that once carried a trembling lamb through thorn and storm. Wood bites into muscle, splinters press like a crown of small betrayals across his back. When his knees buckle, it is not weakness that speaks first. It is weight, the sheer heaviness of the world's wound now resting where love chose to bear it. A stranger is pulled from the crowd to lift part of the burden, but no one can lift what cannot be seen. At the place of the skull, the sky feels too close. They strip him. They stretch him across the wood as if trying to pin down the one who walked on waters. Nails flash and fall, iron through flesh, sound through bone, pain through the day like lightning that won't end. The shepherd's hands, those hands that broke bread, anointed wounds, lifted the fallen, are pierced and fixed to timber. His feet, those feet that found the lost and climbed the valley's narrow spine, are staked to earth as if the world could hold the one who made it. The cross is raised, the city watches, mocking rises like heat. Save yourself. Come down. If you are who you say you are, the words circle like wolves that smell blood. But the shepherd does not snarl. He does not answer insult with thunder. He does what he came to do. He stays. He hangs where judgment tries to break him, and he holds the place he did not deserve, as if it were the only place love could speak loud enough to be heard by every century. Two others hang beside him, one hard with bitterness, one cracked open by a sudden kind of honesty. The second turns and finds, even here, a face that does not refuse. "Remember me," he asks, and the shepherd, breath torn and short, answers with a promise larger than pain. "Today, you will be with me in paradise." Even now, he carries. He looks down and sees the ones he loves, eyes red, hands wrung, hearts unraveling. To his mother, to the friend he trusts, he gives a new home to hold them when his arms are pinned. He sorts the human world even as the human world tries to sort him into silence. Hours pass. The sun staggers. Darkness pours over the land at noon as if the sky itself cannot bear to watch. It isn't night, it's something deeper, the old shadow from the valley grown vast over a hill. In that heavy dark, the shepherd cries a line the earth has been waiting to hear since Eden. Grief that is prayer, abandonment voiced by the only one who could name it without lying. He drinks the cup to the bottom. He does not leave a drop. Once more he speaks, not a sermon, not a defense, but a finished thing. It is finished. Not I am finished. The debt, the distance, the wall between the lost and the one who sought them through storm and thorn and night. Finished like a chain broken, like a curtain torn from top to bottom, like a gate thrown open from the inside. He bows his head and yields his spirit, not taken, but given. The earth answers, rock splits, graves stir, the temple veil, a weight of woven years, rips like paper under a greater hand. A soldier looks up, dust in his teeth, awe in his throat, and says what the world had been trying not to say. Truly, this was the Son of God. Evening gathers with a terrible gentleness. They lower him with care, roughened by grief. Linen becomes a final kind of tenderness, winding around the body that once walked fields and healed fevers and lifted small ones to see over crowds. A borrowed tomb waits, not out of thrift but prophecy. Stone upon stone, cool air, a silence that sounds like closed doors. They lay him there. A great stone is rolled before the entrance. The sound of it is like an ending that won't listen to reason. Guards stand watch as if death needs help to keep its prisoners. Seals are set as if wax could hold back the will of God. Night stretches long, a blanket too heavy for sleep. In hidden rooms, the scattered ones sit with their hands around cups they cannot drink. Memory burns and comforts, pierces and heals. The lamb curls on a floor of woven mats, eyes raw from crying, replaying every step on the hill, every word from that rugged throne. The absence is a storm without rain, a wound without bandage. And yet, beneath the ache, something else murmurs the way a spring murmurs beneath snow. The shepherd said he would not lose what the Father gave him. He said he would lay down his life and take it up again. Outside, the night holds its breath. Within the tomb, linen waits where it was placed. Stone holds its cold counsel. Earth is still, but the stillness is not empty. It is weighty, like a seed's silence just before it breaks. Somewhere in the dark that thinks it is one, a light the world cannot measure begins to press against the edges of the impossible. Morning has a way of finding doors no one can open. Women come through the garden with spices and steps heavy from a night without rest. They whisper practical plans to honor love, to do one last kindness where hope has nothing to hold. When they see the stone, moved, the entrance, open, their voices break on the shore of shock. The angel's brightness spills into their fear. "Do not be afraid," he says, language from another country carried in a human mouth. "You seek Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen." The words lift like a wind that the lungs were made for. They look in. They see linen lying where grief expected a body. They do not find what death promised. Fear and joy wrestle inside them, and joy begins to prevail. "Go," the messenger says. "Tell his disciples that he goes before you." Running becomes prayer. Tears turn to a kind of laughter that feels like breaking and mending at once. Their arms still hold jars of spice made for yesterday. Their hearts hold a news that will outlive every empire. One lingers. Mary stays when others run, because love sometimes cannot move as fast as feet. She bends to look again, as if the second glance might explain what the first could not. Angels ask why she weeps. Words stumble out. "They have taken my Lord, and I don't know where they have laid him," as if the empty place could answer. She turns and sees a figure she takes for the gardener, the keeper of living things. "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where—" He says her name. One word, and the world is renamed with it. Mary. Recognition strikes like sunrise. Grief cracks open and light pours through. She falls toward him as if gravity itself has remembered its true center, but he steadies her with a tenderness that redirects without denying. "Do not hold on to me. I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." The sentence opens a door no one has walked through yet. Not just my Father, but your Father, belonging written into the air. She runs then, but the running is different now. It carries purpose, like flame carries warmth. She finds the others behind shutters in fear, breathless, with a message that refuses to be kept. "I have seen the Lord." Not a theory. A witness, not a rumor, a meeting. Her voice seeds courage into a room that has only been watering dread. Elsewhere, rumors scatter like frightened birds. Guards stammer before authorities. Money changes hands to purchase a lie about sleeping men and stolen bodies. But lies spend quickly against the simple power of an empty tomb and a named heart. The stone remains where heaven left it, a landmark for the end of fear's monopoly. The garden, once a place of burial, hums with the business of beginnings. Out on the road, two travelers speak of dashed hopes and a teacher they thought would redeem everything. A stranger draws near and walks with them, opening scripture the way one opens a window on a stale room. Their hearts burn and do not yet understand why. Bread will soon break in their hands and in their understanding. Their feet will turn back the way they came, not to flee, but to tell. Back in the hidden room, the scattered ones count questions the way some count breaths. Will the wolves find us? Was it all a dream we told each other to survive the night? The door is shut, the bolts are set, their fear is disciplined. But locks are invitations to a Lord who no longer asks doors for permission. He is already near. What began in a garden will come to their table. The voice that called Mary by name will speak a word that gathers every trembling piece into one living piece. Nails left marks in his hands. Those scars will become anchors for faith. The one laid down will stand among them, not as a memory, not as a metaphor, but as the first morning of a world made new. And the moment he speaks, the air itself will change. Night loosens its grip on the garden, not with fanfare, but with a pale seam of light opening along the edge of the world. Olive leaves hold small beads of dew like stars that forgot to leave. The path to the tomb is still, worn by hurried feet from the day before, guarded by men who do not know they are standing watch over the end of their orders. A seal sits unbroken across stone. Silence pretends to be sovereign. But heaven is already moving. It begins beneath hearing, the way roots move under soil, quiet, inevitable. The earth shivers, not in fear, but as if waking. The guards feel it first in their knees, then in their teeth. The ground rolls like a deep breath. A brightness not born of sun touches stone. An angel, terrible and beautiful, steps into the morning, like a blade of lightning sheathed in peace. And with a strength that looks effortless, he puts his hands to what men said no one could move. The stone obeys. It rolls back with the sound of endings splitting from beginnings. The angel sits upon it as if to say, this barrier is now a bench. Guards drop like felled trees, faces to the dust, caught between terror and sleep. The tomb yawns open, a mouth that once spoke death now empty of its boast. Linen lies inside, folded, with the calm of a finished task. No struggle, no theft. Only absence where the body should be, and presence in a way the world has not yet learned to name. Morning climbs. Women come through the garden with spices and steps heavy from a night without rest. They whisper practical plans to honor love, to do one last kindness where hope has nothing to hold. When they see the stone, moved, the entrance, open, their voices break on the shore of shock. The angel's brightness spills into their fear. Do not be afraid, he says, language from another country carried in a human mouth. You seek Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen. The words lift like a wind that the lungs were made for. They look in. They see linen lying where grief expected a body. They do not find what death promised. Fear and joy wrestle inside them, and joy begins to prevail. Go, the messenger says. Tell his disciples that he goes before you. Running becomes prayer. Tears turn to a kind of laughter that feels like breaking and mending at once. Their arms still hold jars of spice made for yesterday. Their hearts hold a news that will outlive every empire. One lingers. Mary stays when others run, because love sometimes cannot move as fast as feet. She bends to look again, as if the second glance might explain what the first could not. Angels ask why she weeps. Words stumble out, they have taken my Lord, and I don't know where they have laid him. As if the empty place could answer. She turns and sees a figure she takes for the gardener, the keeper of living things. Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where. He says her name. One word and the world is renamed with it, Mary. Recognition strikes like sunrise. Grief cracks open and light pours through. She falls toward him, as if gravity itself has remembered its true center, but he steadies her with a tenderness that redirects without denying. Do not hold on to me. I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. The sentence opens a door no one has walked through yet. Not just my Father, but your Father, belonging written into the air. She runs then, but the running is different now. It carries purpose, like flame carries warmth. She finds the others behind shutters in fear, breathless with a message that refuses to be kept. I have seen the Lord. Not a theory, a witness, not a rumor, a meeting. Her voice seeds courage into a room that has only been watering dread. Elsewhere, rumors scatter like frightened birds. Guards stammer before authorities. Money changes hands to purchase a lie about sleeping men and stolen bodies. But lies spend quickly against the simple power of an empty tomb and a named heart. The stone remains where heaven left it, a landmark for the end of fear's monopoly. The garden, once a place of burial, hums with the business of beginnings. Out on the road, two travelers speak of dashed hopes and a teacher they Thought would redeem everything. A stranger draws near and walks with them, opening scripture the way one opens a window on a stale room. Their hearts burn and do not yet understand why. Bread will soon break in their hands and in their understanding. Their feet will turn back the way they came, not to flee, but to tell. Back in the hidden room, the scattered ones count questions the way some count breaths. Will the wolves find us? Was it all a dream we told each other to survive the night? The door is shut. The bolts are set. Their fear is disciplined. But locks are invitations to a Lord who no longer asks doors for permission. He is already near. What began in a garden will come to their table. The voice that called Mary by name will speak a word that gathers every trembling piece into one living piece. Nails left marks in his hands. Those scars will become anchors for faith. The one laid down will stand among them, not as a memory, not as a metaphor, but as the first morning of a world made new. And the moment he speaks, the air itself will change. The door is barred, the windows are shuttered. Fear has taught their hands to move quietly and their breaths to hide inside their chests. Night presses against the house like a question none of them can answer. They speak in whispers, names fraying on their tongues. Mary's, the angels, the gardener who wasn't. Hope and dread sit at the same table and do not look at each other. Then, without latch lifting or wood groaning, he is there. Not a ghost, not a memory warmed by grief. The shepherd stands among them with the ease of light entering a room where curtains are drawn. The air shifts. Something like wind but gentler touches their faces. The first sound he chooses is not a correction, not a charge, not a riddle. It is the sentence their bones have been starving to hear. Peace be with you. The words land like rain on ash. Shoulders that forgot how to lower sink from their ears. Hands unclench. The room takes a breath for the first time since the hill. He shows them his hands. Marks like doors now open, and his side, the wound no longer an argument for death but a witness to love that went all the way through. Joy rises too fast to manage. It breaks across the room like dawn that doesn't ask permission. Again he says it, as if peace needs layers to soak all the way in. Peace be with you. He looks at each one as if there were no crowd, only a single face. Shame does not survive that gaze, neither does despair. Some weep with sounds they haven't let out since childhood. Some laugh, startled and raw. Some simply stare, unable to wrap language around presence. As the Father has sent me, he says, I also send you. Send into a world that still has wolves, into towns where doors slam and names are slandered, into rooms that will not welcome them. Send, but not alone. He breathes on them. It is not the violent wind that will come later with fire. It is the breath that called dust into being, the breath that steadies a newborn. Warmth moves across the skin, down into the places that flinch. Receive the Holy Spirit, he says, and the word receive feels like a cup being pressed into open hands. He speaks of forgiveness, not as a theory, but as a power they will carry. If you forgive the sins of any, they are forgiven. He is not appointing them as judges. He is making them doorkeepers to the mercy that found them hiding. The sentence stretches beyond the room and into every alley their feet will discover. The world will try to live on debt and payback. They will walk with cancellation in their mouths. One face is missing. Thomas is elsewhere, honest, stubborn, built with a ribbed integrity that will not purchase comfort cheaply. Later he will ask for proof, not because faith frightens him, but because love matters too much to be faked. The shepherd will meet him where he asks to be met, hands offered, side bared, not shaming him for the caution of a wounded heart, but blessing those who believe without touching. For now, the others keep repeating, we have seen the Lord, and their voices are not arguments, they are songs. He stays long enough for the room to learn how to breathe without bracing. He moves among them like a father checking beds after a long thunderstorm, smoothing hair, naming courage, gathering frayed edges. The small lamb, the one once slung across his shoulders, stands very close, eyes fixed on the marks in his hands. It thinks of thorns and narrow paths, of oil on wounds and bread in the valley. All those were not separate kindnesses. They were chapters of this same story that now stands before them, living. When at last he is gone from sight, gone the way sunrise is gone once it has become the day, they do not feel abandoned. Presence lingers like the scent of bread after a feast, like warmth in stones hours after noon. Peace is not the absence of danger, it is the nearness of him. Their fear, which had been so disciplined, loses its authority. The bar across the door looks smaller than it did. Someone lifts it without being told. They step outside, slowly at first, as if the world might be different, and they are afraid to find it unchanged. It is not different in the ways they hoped. No tyrants toppled, no armies halted. But the street does not feel like a threat now. It feels like a field ready for seed. Words they were afraid to say begin to take shape on their tongues. Forgiveness, life, mercy, Jesus. The name tastes like spring water after a winter of dust. Yet one heart in the room beats to a memory with sharper edges. By the cooling coals of a courtyard fire, a voice had said, "I do not know him," and it wasn't the voice of a stranger. Love had looked back through smoke and named the wound without closing the door. The man who said those words holds them now like stones in his pockets. He smiled when peace was spoken. He wept when hands were shown. But in the quiet between breath and task, his shame still tries to speak louder than grace. There is another fire waiting, not in a courtyard of fear, but on a shore where morning sits on the water like a promise. Nets will drag with impossible kindness, bread will warm on coals, and the voice that said peace will ask a question that unties knots one by one, not to embarrass a friend, but to restore him to himself. Before the sending stretches far, love will set a place for the one who thinks he disqualified himself. Morning folds itself over the lake like a soft blanket. The water holds the sky in its open hands, pale and glassy, barely breathing. Out on the surface, a small boat rocks in a tired rhythm. Nets drag through the deep and come up whispering emptiness, again and again. The men on board move by muscle memory. Throw, pull, coil, hearts heavy, minds crowded by what was and what they fear will never be again. From the shore, a voice carries across the quiet. "Children, have you any fish?" They turn, squinting into the dawn. "No," they answer, and the word tastes of long nights and longer regrets. "Cast the net on the right side of the boat," the voice calls, "and you will find." It should be ridiculous. It should be the kind of suggestion that makes tired men wave it away. Still, hands move, the net arcs, the line hisses across the water. It sinks. A breath. Then the world beneath them surges. The rope goes hot in their palms. The net is alive, straining, heaving with weight they did not earn. Laughter breaks out of throats that haven't remembered how. Someone whispers, "It is the Lord." The one who once said, "I don't know him," doesn't wait for the boat. He dives. Water closes over his head and he swims like someone racing a second chance. He stumbles ashore, soaked, breathless, wordless. There is a charcoal fire on the beach. The scent rises, smoke, fish, warm bread, and memory hits like a wave he did not see coming. Another charcoal fire, another night, another voice. "You were with him." "I am not," 3 times. A rooster, a look, a heart undone. He swallows hard, eyes on the ground. The fire before him is not accusation, but it knows his name. Jesus is tending the coals as if breakfast were the natural sequel to resurrection. "Bring some of the fish you have just caught," he says, letting them feel the dignity of offering what grace supplied. The others reach shore, dragging the net that refuses to tear. No one asks, "Who are you?" They know. He serves them. Bread in his hands again, fish passed to each as if they were children at a familiar table. The beach becomes a sanctuary with sand for a floor and the lake for stained glass. They eat. Warmth spreads where cold had camped. When the meal is finished, Jesus turns to the one with the wet hair and the louder ache. "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" The question lands soft and heavy at once. It is not a trap. It is a door. The man meets the eyes he once avoided. "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." "Feed my lambs." Silence holds a moment, not to accuse, but to make room. Again the voice. "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" The man nods quickly, words tumbling out. "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." "Tend my sheep." A 3rd time, not to rub salt in an old wound, but to clean it fully. "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" The man winces, not at the question, but at the place it touches. His answer reaches for the only ground that won't break. "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Feed my sheep." The charcoal fire in the courtyard had named his failure. This charcoal fire on the beach names his future. Love is not a feeling he must protect from weakness. It is a calling that will outlast it. The shepherd does not ask him to prove himself. He asks him to care for what he cares for. Nearby, a small lamb, the one once carried on those shoulders, stands close enough to feel the warmth on its face. It doesn't understand the theology of restoration, but it recognizes the look on the shepherd's face. The same kindness that found it tangled in thorns now clothes a man who thought he'd forfeited everything. The lamb noses his wet sleeve as if to say, "I believe you." Jesus keeps speaking, of paths that will one day lead where the man would not choose, of arms stretched by obedience rather than fear. It isn't punishment, it's a prophecy shaped like trust. The man who ran will one day stand where running is impossible, and love will hold him there. He glances down the beach to another friend and asks, because hearts love to compare, "Lord, what about him? If I want him to remain until I come, what is that to you?" Jesus answers, not sharply but cleanly, freeing him from the weight of measuring his calling against another's. "You follow me." The words settle like a new backbone. The man breathes. The old shame loosens its last knot. He does not become flawless. He becomes faithful. They walk together along the water's edge. The lake murmurs. Gulls stitch their white thread across the sky. Behind them, the others pull boats onto sound and coil ropes for the next voyage of an entirely different kind. The shepherd's staff is not in his hand now, yet he still leads, step by step, sentence by sentence, toward a world that needs more than fish and more than courage. It needs power they do not possess, presence that will not waver when doors lock and crowds rage. "Remain in the city," he tells them later, "on a hill where the horizon looks like a promise. Wait for the gift my Father promised. You will be clothed with power from on high." They do not know the shape of that power yet. They only know the sound of his voice and the taste of bread he has blessed. Night will come again, but they won't hide the same way. There is a breath on them that will soon become a wind. There is a spark among them that will soon become a flame. And the ones who were fed on a beach will learn to feed a world. They wait in an upstairs room that feels smaller than it did yesterday. Windows cracked for air, door unbarred but quietly watched. The sounds of the festival rise from the streets, pilgrims from every direction, languages like colored threads crossing the same square. They remember his words the way seed remembers rain. "Remain, wait for the gift my Father promised. You will be clothed with power from on high." Morning climbs the wall. They pray, not polished, not impressive, just steady, like oars dipping and rising. A breath moves through the room, soft at first, the way a parent's whisper moves through a child's fear. Then the breath becomes wind. The wind becomes presence. The presence becomes sound, like weather breaking inside a house that cannot hold it. They look at one another, eyes wide. Flame appears, not devouring, not destructive, but bright with a gentleness that still knows how to make stone tremble. It divides and rests on each of them as if fire had learned their names. Their chests fill with a courage that isn't adrenaline and a peace that isn't passivity. Words come, familiar truths dressed in unfamiliar music. They speak, and the vowels carry farther than voices should. The door swings open without anyone noticing who touched it first. Feet that once fled now find the stairs the way a river finds the sea. The street swells around them. Jerusalem is a map of nations today. Parthians, Medes, Elamites, Judeans, Cappadocians, travelers from Rome, visitors from the sands of Arabia and the green of Cyprus. Faces lift, heads tilt. They hear Galileans speaking the language of their childhood kitchens, the lullabies their mothers hummed, the market banter of their fathers. The miracle is not in the volume, it is in the nearness. God is speaking, and he's doing it in the words everybody dreams in. Some press in, stunned. Some laugh because when fear can't explain something, it tries to make it small. They're filled with new wine, someone sneers, as if joy were always a cheap thing. A fisherman steps forward. Once he swung a sword because he didn't know what else to do. Once he swore 3 times that he didn't know the one he loved. But breakfast on a beach and a question asked thrice have remade his backbone. He lifts his voice without straining. The wind that filled the room now fills his chest. "These people are not drunk," he begins. "It's only morning." He gestures to the crowd, to the flame that does not burn, to the words carried like gifts. This is what was spoken. I will pour out my spirit on all flesh, sons and daughters, young and old, servants and free. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. He speaks of Jesus, not as an idea, but as the man they knew, hands that healed, words that cut lies out at the root, a cross they all remember passing on their way home before Sabbath. You nailed him to a cross by the hands of lawless men, he says, and the sentence does not spit, it grieves. But God raised him up. Scripture unfolds like a door, David's hope, the Holy One not abandoned to decay, a Lord and Messiah made known by resurrection. He does not bluff, he bears witness. Something like weather moves through the crowd again, this time inside their ribs. They are cut to the heart, not by accusation, but by truth that loves them enough to be specific. What must we do? Repent, he says, and the word sounds less like a scolding and more like a turning of the face toward light. Be baptized in the name of Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of your sins, and you will receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. Not just for the few in the room upstairs, for you, for your children, for all who are far off, as many as the Lord our God will call. Water is found, names are spoken, thousands step into the current of a new creation, life reorders itself. They devote themselves to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and prayers. Awe settles like a canopy. Wonders flicker along the streets the way swallows flicker over evening fields. Possessions become less precious than people. Houses learn the sound of psalms. Bread is passed, and no one eats alone. Joy and generosity walk arm in arm, making ordinary days look like festivals. But power does not make the world gentle by default. The same leaders who tried to cage truth will notice soon. Gates will creak, orders will be issued, names will be recorded by hands that don't know what to do with mercy. The flock will learn that the wind which fills sails also pushes boats into open water. Safety will no longer mean staying, it will mean being sent. The small lamb, the one once carried through thorns, moves among the growing family with eyes bright and steady. It hears testimonies and accents from far coasts, watches elders lay hands on the sick, sees a beggar's legs turn from withered branches to strong pillars. In every healed limb and opened heart, it recognizes the same shepherd's touch, present now in a way that multiplies hands and lengthens reach. Evening spreads over the city, warm and buzzing. On rooftops and in courtyards, new brothers and sisters sing lines that sound like roads. You are with us, you dwell with us, you lead us on. The wind that began upstairs does not end at thresholds. It leans east and west, north and south, toward deserts and harbors, toward islands and empires. The shepherd is doing again what he did on hills and in valleys, calling, gathering, guarding, but now through voices that carry his breath. Soon, the city's lanes will not be wide enough for what love intends. Feet will find roads they have never walked, and doors will open that no map predicted. The flock will not be contained by one fold or one language. They will go, some running, some limping, all carried by the same invisible strength, until the distant fields hear the news that began with a rolled stone and a gentle word of peace. Streets that once echoed with a single language now carry many footsteps in many directions. The room upstairs is too small for what love has become, and the city, bright with festivals and heavy with suspicion, cannot hold the wideness of the news. Doors open, some close. Hands that shared bread now shoulder packs. Maps are folded into pockets, and names are whispered over travelers like blessings stitched into cloaks. They go. Some head north, where the roads are lined with cypress and stone markers carved with emperors' names. Others take the coastal way, where the sea keeps breathing at the edge of thought and boats stitch harbors together like beads on a string. A few turn their faces to the desert, where the horizon is a thin blade and the wind writes and rewrites the earth every night. One is sent toward a city of scholars, another toward markets where spices turn air to gold. Prison gates will learn new prayers, synagogues will hear scripture unfold to its center, houses built for trade will become houses of mercy. Wherever they go, the same pulse follows. He is risen, He is Lord, He is with us. The small lamb, grown sure in its steps, walks with a band headed toward the hills. Their sandals raise thin ghosts of dust. Behind them, a woman hums a psalm under her breath. Ahead, a man points to a narrow pass where the land squeezes into a canyon of red rock. At midday, the road shimmers. They stop in the shade of a tamarisk and share dates and a little water. Conversation is simple. Stories of the shore, the room, the wind, the flame. When fear tries to speak, someone repeats a line they heard from the fisherman in the square. For you and your children, and for all who are far off. The phrase stretches like a bridge over places they haven't seen yet. In one town, they enter through a gate beneath towers of sun-baked brick. Vendors call out, measuring grain. Children chase a wheel. A blind man sits with his face lifted to voices. They speak peace first, always peace, in the name of Jesus, and a few draw nearer while others fold their arms. A woman brings bread. A man brings questions sharp enough to cut. A handful scoff. Two invite them to stay. That night, in a small courtyard, the name of the shepherd becomes a lamp. The blind man's eyes open as if morning were inside them. Neighbors gather at the threshold, halting as if the floor between doubt and wonder might crack. A child laughs first, she always does, and the crowd tips toward joy. They move on. Word outruns them down other roads. In a port city, blown glass flashes like caught lightning in shop windows. Sailors with salt in their beards hear the message in their mother tongues and blink as if tasting home after long water. One of them, rough and tender, holds his hat to his chest and says, "If he can calm storms, perhaps he can still this one," and no one asks which. Every man knows the one in his ribs. They pray by the ropes and tar, and someone weeps into a coil as if it were a friend's shoulder. But not every lane opens. In more than one square, the air shifts when the name of Jesus is spoken. Faces harden, hands find stones they won't throw today but want to remember tomorrow. A leader in a polished robe steps forward and says the word blasphemy like a curse designed to stick. Invitations dry up, lodging is withdrawn. Markets that were friendly yesterday sell silence today. They keep going, not because they are fearless, but because he is with them in ways that make fear a smaller voice. Nights are sometimes kind. A roof, a lamp, a basin of water passed around, a hymn sung so softly even the mice have to lean in to hear. Other nights are a field and a sky full of God's patience. They share cloaks and stories. They laugh the way people do who have survived together. The small lamb sleeps with its nose on dusty sandals and dreams of the shepherd's staff tapping out a rhythm on the world's edge. Then the first arrest comes. It happens in the gray of morning when bread ovens begin to exhale and the street sweepers are not yet done. A door crashes inward. Orders are read in voices that make mercy sound illegal. They bind wrists not built for fighting and march love through alleys that smell like peel and iron. Neighbors shrink into doorways. Some weep behind their hands. Others, relieved to be on the safe side of danger, look away. Prison is dark and damp, a place that trains hope to whisper. But hope learns how to sing there. Hymns find the seams in stone. Names are prayed over by a light so small it couldn't scare a moth, and still it warms the room. Chains click against worn walls like metronomes for faith. A guard who thought he understood power hears forgiveness spoken to him as if he were the only man in the world, and it confuses him into honesty. News of trouble travels faster than news of miracles. In the towns they have left, doors that once opened to them are latched. In the towns they approach, officials meet them at the edge with questions already sharpened. The flock learns to walk with eyes up and hands open, to bless those who curse, to shake dust without spite. They learn how to stay when welcome is given and how to go when it is withdrawn. They learn the shape of courage that looks like gentleness with a spine. One evening, on a ridge overlooking a valley of vineyards and river, the road narrows to a single file along a ledge. The sun lowers, throwing gold over everything that can hold it. The small lamb pauses and looks out, fields stitched like a garment, towns like buttons, a far road like a thread pulled tight. Somewhere down there are rooms where they will be received like brothers, and rooms where they will be received like trouble. Somewhere down there are tables set for them, and cells waiting for their names. It asks, without speaking, when danger closes in, when doors lock and eyes burn, does he still see us? A wind moves across the ridge. No storm, no spectacle, just the kind of touch that makes wheat bow and lamp steady. The answer is not a sign in the sky. It is a memory grown strong enough to stand on. Bread broken on a beach, scars shown in a locked room, a breath that filled a house and spilled into streets. The shepherd has not lost them to the map. His presence does not need a single address. They descend the path, shadows lengthening at their heels. Somewhere ahead, there will be a night that feels too long and a silence that tests the heart. But the same voice that called them out will meet them in the places that try to make them small. And when the quiet becomes heavy enough to bend their backs, it will break with a word they know by heart. Night has a way of sounding bigger when the door is made of iron. In the small space where breath fogs the cold and walls sweat damp, a believer lies awake counting drips that fall from the ceiling like slow seconds. Shackles rest heavy on ankles, linen scratches skin that still remembers sun. The prayer that once rose like a river is now a thread, frayed but not broken. He whispers the name that steadied him on the road, and the name seems to vanish into stone. Across the city, in a house where windows are curtained against curious eyes, a woman sits on the floor with her back against a door. She presses a hand to the wood as if touch could become intercession. Her lamp gutters. She has prayed every way she knows, scripture spoken aloud, silence held like a cup, tears that do their own talking. The room feels full of what she cannot say. Are you here? Are you hearing? The shepherd once felt as near as a whisper against her ear. Tonight, the quiet answers first. In another town miles away, a cave opens into a hillside where two more hide. Wind breathes through the fissure, turning their small fire into a throat of light. They keep watch by turns. When it is his hour, the younger of the two stares into the coals until shapes appear. Faces from markets where they spoke peace, from synagogues where hope stretched, from cells where singing stitched courage onto walls. He thinks of the day the wind walked into the upper room and flame-crowned foreheads. Now the only crown he sees is darkness on the ridge where soldiers sometimes pass. Silence is not the same everywhere. In some rooms it weighs, in others it thins like air on a mountain. Sometimes it sits, stubborn and cold. Sometimes it stretches a hand toward trust and says, "Walk here." The small lamb has learned the different kinds. It has known the hush of pasture and the holy quiet after storms. This silence is neither. It is the kind where a heart asks questions with no punctuation. Did we misunderstand? Were those words for then, not now? Is there a timing to mercy we cannot read? It stands at the mouth of an alley and watches the moon polish the rooftops. The city sleeps like someone pretending, chest rising a little too carefully. Somewhere a door closes too hard. Somewhere a dog barks and stops as if shushed by an unseen hand. The lamb remembers bread on the beach and breath in the locked room, remembers the shepherd's palm warm with oil in the valley of stone. It remembers the sentence that unknotted the world, "It is finished." But tonight memory and present stand at a distance from each other, and the in-between is long. In the cell, the chained believer hums what he can't sing. His voice has learned to fit in small places without breaking. The notes touch the wall and turn back to him. He thinks of Paul and Silas, how midnight was not refusal but invitation, how song became a key. He thinks of the fisherman who stood before councils with unshaking eyes. He thinks of the thief who heard paradise from a dying mouth. His mind gathers witnesses like kindling and waits for a spark that does not come quickly. The woman at the door finally sleeps, head bent, palms still against the wood. She dreams she is standing by a river older than maps, where trees lean over the water with leaves like open hands. On the far bank, someone walks along the line where water kisses earth. She cannot see his face, but she knows his walk. When she wakes, the room is unchanged, the same weak lamp, the same thin dawn, but something in her chest has stopped shouting. It has begun to listen. Silence, it turns out, is not empty when he is in it. Before sunrise, the cave watch sees movement on the ridge, torches sliding past like fireflies forced to carry iron. He reaches to wake his companion, who is already awake and praying without words. They wait for the sound to pass. When the last ember of the patrol disappears, they add 2 sticks to the fire and warm their hands. The older one speaks first. "We will not measure his nearness by how much noise the world makes." The younger nods, embarrassed by how much he needed someone else to say what he almost remembered. By mid-morning, the prisoner hears footsteps and assumes the day will be long. They bring water, a crust, a look that never meets his eyes. He thanks them out loud. The guard flinches, as if thanks were heavier than insult. When the corridor empties, the believer lies back and speaks to the ceiling. I don't need you to be loud. I just need you to be here. He waits. Waiting becomes the prayer. The prayer becomes breath. Breath becomes rest that is not sleep. In the afternoon, the woman opens her window a finger's width and lets the day in. She sets bread on a plate as if someone might take a piece. She reads the same psalm for the fourth time and finds a sentence she hadn't seen. My soul, wait in silence for God alone, for my hope is from Him. The words don't glow or rise or float. They sit next to her like a friend who understands how to be present without fixing. In the evening, the two in the cave step outside. The sun moves toward the lip of the world and spills gold over the plain. From where they stand, a distant village lifts smoke, and fields wear rows like lines of a hymn. The younger says, "It feels like we are hidden." The older replies, "Or held." When night comes back, the iron door learns the rhythm of prayer again. The house learns the weight of peace again. The cave learns the sound of hearts that will not let silence make them orphans. In each place, the quiet thins and something like a path appears, not underfoot but inside the chest, and then, not with bells or trumpet, but the way a hand finds yours in the dark, presence arrives. Not to remove every chain tonight, not to open every door at once, but to stand in the room, in the house, at the cave mouth, as fire that does not shout and light that does not blind. A warmth that asks no permission grows in cold stones. A knowing rises that did not come from sight. The name that seemed to vanish returns carrying other names with it. Beloved, kept, seen. The lamb lifts its head. The prisoner sits up. The woman at the door smiles without deciding to. The watchers step one pace forward, then another. Somewhere in the city, a small lamp burns steadier. Somewhere under earth, roots keep moving toward water. And in places where the night swears it will have the last word, a different word starts forming on many tongues at once, one that sounds like courage set on fire. It begins with smoke that isn't from kitchens. A market square thickens with heat that does not belong to summer. Voices swell, some pleading, some chanting, some made sharp by fear dressed as certainty. A wooden frame rises where sellers once weighed figs and grain. Soldiers stack kindling like arguments. A magistrate reads accusations as if paper could carry justice on its back. In the middle stands a small knot of believers, hands unbound, faces steady, hearts fastened to a name that fire cannot spell. They are asked to recant, to kneel, to swear by the gods that keep the city's commerce humming. They are promised life if they will treat truth like clay. A girl no older than the morning says, almost gently, "We cannot." A man beside her adds, "Not because we love pain, but because we love Him." The crowd mutters. The magistrate sighs the way tired men sigh when conscience insists on complicating easy work. The torch comes. Flame takes quickly to dry wood, licks up the posts, climbs toward faces that do not flinch. Heat rolls across the square, a furnace without walls. Some step back, some lean in, as if proximity could make certainty contagious. But what reaches the front row first is silence, the kind that stands beside courage without making speeches. Someone in the crowd thinks of a tale from childhood. 3 exiles, a furnace 7 times hot, a 4th in the fire who looked like a son. And then the old story becomes the present tense. The flames bow. They do not go out. This is not a theater of miracles to entertain the bored. Instead, fire remembers its maker. It learns again how to burn without devouring. Heat pushes close enough to blister fear but not flesh. The rope that bound wrists, there were ropes after all, blackens and snaps like threads embarrassed by their bragging. The girl lifts her hands, unharmed. The man breathes, and the air smells like cedar and rain instead of hair and char. A soldier drops his spear. The magistrate's parchment trembles. He looks for a lever that isn't there. There is no law for this, no statute that tells a city what to do when a flame forgets to be cruel. He clears his throat and declares the crowd dismissed. People do not move. They stand as if pinned by wonder to a god they hadn't planned to meet before lunch. News outruns smoke. In another district, a door is kicked open and a house church dragged into the street. Stones are taken up with the ritual boredom of men who have thrown many. Before the first R marks, an old woman speaks. Wait. Her voice is sleeve-thin but mountain-steady. If you will not hear His name, hear mine. I have fed 3 generations of your sons when they were sick. I have washed your dead. I will not curse the one who taught me how." The stone in a neighbor's hand grows heavier and does not fly. He lowers it as if he suddenly remembered the weight of mercy. Not every threat turns aside. There are prisons and lashings, fines that empty cupboards, banishments that make the road a second skin. There are funerals with songs that sound like rivers pulling grief toward an ocean. There are days when rescue does not look like release, but like a strength that makes chains unable to tell a soul who it is. Miracles are not always bright. Sometimes they hide in the grit of a jaw, set to forgiveness, in the back straightening under insult, in bread shared thinner and joy shared thicker. The small lamb walks through these days with eyes wide and steady. It watches a midwife lay hands on a feverish child and whisper the name that cooled storms. By evening, the child sits up and asks for figs. It watches a scribe who once mocked the way sit at the edge of a gathering, tears leaking into his beard as the psalms he copied for money finally enter his heart. It watches a potter lose his workshop to a fire set by unknown vandals, and then shape clay in a neighbor's yard while humming the Magnificat under his breath. The world keeps breaking. The grace in it keeps not stopping. One night, the authorities decide spectacle is the cleanest medicine for dissent. They turn the amphitheater into a liturgy of fear, torches, iron, a gate groaning open, a lion hungry with the hunger men engineered. The flock gathers in the stands, hands white on each other's sleeves. At the sand's center stand 2, mother and son, backs touching, heads high. The boy's knees shake. The mother whispers something that sounds like a lullaby from a childhood they both suddenly remember too clearly. The gate clanks. The lion emerges, ribs like bowed rafters, breath a furnace. It lowers its head, steps, pauses. It lifts its face as if scenting not meat but something it does not have words for. The mother speaks softly to the boy. "Look." They look not at the lion, but at the space between themselves and its teeth. The boy blinks, confused. The mother smiles, and in her eyes is the light of a fourth who walks where heat gathers, and fear claims squatters' rights. The lion lies down. The amphitheater forgets how to make sound. The handler's whip cracks air that was not resisting. The beast rises, paces, presses its face to the bars as if asking for an exit from a story it no longer wants to play. The crowd's appetite falters. Something more than entertainment has entered their afternoon. Some leave early, pretending boredom. Others linger long, ruined for cruelty by a gentleness stronger than jaw and claw. Not every arena will end this way, the Lamb knows, but this one did. And that is enough to teach a city that heaven is not a rumor. Night falls. The believers gather in a courtyard still warm from the day. They count names like beads. Who is safe? Who is hidden? Who needs bread? Who needs bandages? Who needs someone to sit in quiet beside a bed where sleep will not come? They break loaves and bless God for food that tastes like kindness. A boy asks the old woman if the flame will always bend. She answers truthfully, "I do not know about always. I know about with us." They sing, not loudly, not to dare the streets to answer, but with a strength that learns melody from scars. The harmony is the ordinary kind, the sort that can be carried while washing dishes or walking to a hearing. Fireflies thread the air like punctuation. Somewhere in the dark, a magistrate stares at his hands and wonders when parchment began to feel so thin. The lamb leans against the shepherd's leg. He is here, as surely as he was among the 3 in Babylon, as surely as he was on a hill where wood rose into sky. Heat from his nearness pushes back the chill that waited outside the gate. Tomorrow may bring smoke again, or cells, or roads marked with exile. What tonight has given is the quiet knowledge that flame is not king, and teeth are not law. They will need more than moments. They will need miles. Not a rescue that ends the path, but a presence that lengthens stride. The flames have taught them this much. Hope that breathes in fire must learn how to breathe in long silence too. And that is the lesson waiting in the hours yet to come, when miracles hide and courage must learn to hold its posture through the length of a darker night. Night returns, not like an ambush, but like a tide, slow, certain, filling every hollow with dark water. Lamps are trimmed, doors are latched, the last embers of the courtyard fire settle into a red hush. No fire falling from heaven tonight, no prison doors flying open, only ordinary breath and the long work of staying. Waiting is a different kind of courage. It is not the shout on the battlefield or the sprint down the beach at sunrise. It is the spine that remains when song is a whisper and answers come with the pace of winter. Some wounds knit in an afternoon, others take seasons and leave tenderness in weather you cannot forecast. The flock learns this rhythm by living it. Bread that must be baked again tomorrow, prayers that must be prayed again tonight. In a small room with a low ceiling, a mother rocks a cradle with her foot while mending a cloak. Her husband limps from a beating he did not deserve. He sleeps in slices, waking at every noise. She threads the needle and breathes through the ache that wants a miracle on demand. She doesn't stop wanting it. She just refuses to make the wanting her Lord. Strength for this stitch, she asks, and the thread slides true. Across town, a weaver sits beside a loom that once sang all day. Orders have thinned, friends have faded to safe distances. He knots tassels with fingers that remember prosperity. Between knots, he names the promises one by one, not as spells, but as stones he stands on. I am with you. I will not leave you. Your labor in the Lord is not in vain. The room doesn't brighten. His shoulders do. On the outskirts, a young disciple takes the night watch, staff across his knees, eyes on the road that curves away like a question. He is new enough to think faith should always feel like wind and flame. Tonight, it feels like sitting still. He rehearses the shepherd's words under his breath until they turn from lines he knows into company he keeps. Somewhere after midnight, the temptation to quit pretending courage is replaced by the gift of being kept. Not every endurance looks like staying put. Some looks like walking the next mile with nothing but yesterday's mercies in your pocket. A widow travels with a caravan toward family she has not seen in years, packing grief and bread and the psalms in her mouth. Dust cakes her sandals. Hope keeps her ankles from swelling. She does not know where she will live. She knows who will meet her there. The small lamb watches all this, the slow faith that doesn't flash, the steady hands, the tired eyes that still look up. It learns to measure time differently, not in the distance between miracles, but in the nearness of presence that does not leave when miracles do. It remembers the shepherd at the valley's mouth, oil on his hands, patience in his posture. That same patience moves through his people like a quiet river underground. There are days when the silence cracks. Someone is healed, a hard official softens, a prodigal knocks at the door. But most days are loom and cradle and watch and road. The flock begins to see these days not as failures of heaven, but as fields where faith grows roots. The soil of long nights is good for certain fruits. Gentleness that doesn't evaporate, joy that refuses cynicism, kindness that keeps showing up with bread when no one is watching. And there are nights when endurance is simply borrowing another's hope. A man sits at table staring at an untouched cup while the words in his head run like wolves. A friend arrives with figs and says nothing for a long time. When they finally pray, the friend's voice carries both men's faith, and heaven counts it for two. Endurance has 1,000 faces. One of them is friendship that doesn't time the miracle. The shepherd is not idle in these slow hours. He walks the circumference of their small worlds, door to door, bed to bed, loom to road, leaving signs easy to miss if you look only for spectacle, the way a child sleeps through thunder, the way a letter arrives the day strength fails, the way a scripture you've known since childhood steps into the room like a new person and sits down beside you. He is teaching them to stand, not by making them stone, but by making them alive, flexible, rooted, able to bend without breaking. Stand, he said once on a plane, and men thought he meant grit your teeth. In truth, he meant, lean into me. I'll carry the weight you cannot see. So they lean. They refuse bitterness its throne. They pick up small obediences and find them heavier than they look and lighter than they feared. They bless their enemies with names instead of categories. They forgive again, not because memory vanished, but because love chose to rule. Some evenings they climb the roof and watch the line where the world ends. Stars puncture the fabric of night with their old, patient language. Someone whispers, "How long?" Not as complaint, but as homesickness. The answer comes the way it always has in seasons like these. Not a date, but a person. I am coming. The sentence does not erase chores or shorten trials. It does something better. It lifts the horizon until today's weight sits inside tomorrow's certainty. They begin to live like people who expect a footstep. Oil is kept ready, not because they are anxious, but because they are loved. Lamps are trimmed without drama. Work is done with eyes that glance often toward the road. Mercy becomes muscle memory. They comfort the dying as if death were only a doorway, because it is. They bless children as if time were short, because it might be. They forgive quickly, as if the trumpet might sound before supper, because it could. The long night does not end with thunder. It ends the way morning always ends night, quietly at first, then all at once, and even before the first pale seam appears at the edge of the world, hearts trained by waiting hear a change in the wind and sit up straighter. Somewhere, a watchman will soon lift his lantern a little higher. Somewhere, a cry will carry from wall to street, from street to house, and every lamp already burning will look like wisdom. Those who learn to stand in the slow hours will be the ones whose hands are free when the door opens and the voice they love fills the sky. There are nights when the world feels like it's holding its breath. High above the sleeping streets, watchmen stand on stone walls, cloaks pulled tight against the wind. Below them, lanterns flicker in windows, small embers of hope scattered across the dark. These men do not sleep, not because they aren't tired, but because they carry a duty heavier than rest. Their eyes scan the horizon, trained to notice everything: shifting shadows, movement on the road, the faintest sound of footsteps approaching. Jesus had spoken of nights like this. "Stay awake," he said. "Keep your lamps burning. You do not know the hour when the Master will return." They didn't understand fully then. But now, after the cross, after the empty tomb, after the wind and fire of the Spirit, those words burn brighter than torches. His return is no longer a distant theory. It is a promise sharpening the hearts of those who wait. Below the wall, a woman places oil in a small clay lamp, just enough to last until morning. She whispers a prayer as the flame catches. Her children sleep in the corner, unaware of the silence pressing outside. In her chest beats a rhythm not of fear, but of readiness. She remembers his words, "Blessed are those servants whom the Master finds watching." Across the city, old hands light another lamp. A man with silver hair and weary eyes walks the narrow street, checking house to house, not as a soldier, not as a judge, but as someone who refuses to let the dark convince them that light has left for good. He pauses near a doorway where a widow lives. Through the cracks in the wood, he sees a faint glow. She, like him, keeps watch. He smiles and continues. Further up, in a quiet upper room, a group gathers with scrolls unrolled and hearts stretched thin between longing and endurance. The Psalms are read softly, words about watching through the night, about a God who neither slumbers nor sleeps. Someone speaks into the silence. We don't wait to escape. We wait because we belong to Him. Heads nod, tears shine. No one leaves. The small lamb, once carried across stormy valleys, now walks beside the walls, listening to the wind brush against stone. It thinks of how the shepherd never slept when wolves prowled, how his eyes always found the lost before they even knew they were missing. If he asked his people to watch, it must be because he knows dawn is nearer than it looks. But watching is not idle. It's not staring at the sky and refusing to live. It's kindness offered in markets. It's forgiveness spoken even when it costs. It's lamps trimmed, hearts soft, hands open. It's refusing to let the world's darkness extinguish what He lit inside them. Watching means living ready, like servants who have already set a place at the table for a guest who hasn't knocked yet. Still, nights grow long. There are scoffers who laugh from tavern doors. Where is this return you speak of? The world continues as it always has. Some believe them, some grow dull. With waiting, lamps gone dry, hearts asleep even while their eyes are open. Others drift into distraction, building bigger barns and louder lives so they don't have to hear the silence. But not all. Some hearts burn like watchfires. On the wall, the youngest watchman shifts his stance, fighting the pull of sleep. "What if he doesn't come in my lifetime?" he murmurs. The elder beside him answers without turning. "Then you will have stood ready when others chose to sleep, and He will know your name." Midnight deepens. The stars shine like ancient witnesses. In houses and on hillsides, faithful ones stay awake, not perfectly, not without struggle, but with love stronger than weariness. They do not know when the first footstep will echo across the hills. They only know He said He was coming, and He has never broken a promise. Somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond sight and sound, something begins to stir. Like wind before a storm, like light beneath the edge of night. The watchmen straighten. They do not speak. They listen. Something, someone, is drawing close. It begins the way dawn begins on the best of mornings. Quiet pressure beneath the edge of night, except this is not dawn as the world has known it. The sky does not lighten from one horizon. It opens from everywhere at once, a bloom of brilliance that finds every alley, every field, every mountain shoulder. Watchmen gripping stone feel the wall hum under their hands. Lamps, faithfully trimmed, look like echoes of a greater fire. A sound like many waters, like wind through 1,000 cedars, like the first word spoken over creation, rolls across the earth. Hearts know it before ears do. The small lamb lifts its head. The old woman at her window stands. The fisherman on a distant shore forgets his nets mid-cast. Even the scoffer at the tavern door pauses, cup halfway to his mouth, as something older than his laughter steps into the day. The sky parts. Not a slit or seam, but a revelation. Curtains drawn back to show the world it lived all along before a throne it could not see. Light does not merely shine, it arrives. Angels, bright as hammered gold, quick as lightning, clean as morning, thread the air in ranks that sing without needing breath. They are terrible in the way truth is terrible. No cruelty, only unarguable reality. Trumpets call, not to frighten, but to gather. And at the center, riding the cloud the way a king rides the road prepared for him, comes the shepherd. Not the anonymity of a manger, not the long patience of a hidden life, not even the wound-scarred quiet of resurrection mornings, though the scars still speak. He comes clothed in authority as easily as in humility, every promise like a jewel set where the world can see it, eyes like flame that does not destroy, voice like a river that knows every stone it passes, a name written that no lie can pronounce. Those who loved his appearing fall to their knees as if gravity itself remembers whom it serves. Tears dry mid-cheek, spines unbend, hands that braided grief into daily bread rise without command. Children smile the way they do when a door opens and a beloved face fills it. The faithful dead stand, called by the one who knows the language bones understand. Graves lose their argument. Cemeteries become gardens again. He does not shout down the proud, he outshines them. Kings who measured peace in iron feel their crowns loosen like leaves in wind. Armies hear the wrongness in their clatter. The lies of empires, carefully stacked, expensively maintained, tilt like stage scenery when the house lights come up. The earth takes a long breath, the kind it tried to take on the afternoon the veil tore, and holds it, trembling with relief. The shepherd's gaze moves over the world he never left. It is judgment and gentleness at once, the way sunlight judges mold and warms wheat in the same hour. He sees the cup of water given in secret, the door opened to a stranger, the forgiveness wrestled for and finally offered. He sees, too, the rooms where cruelty was planned with clean hands and careful ledgers, the faces practiced into calm while others starved, the mouths full of God language that never learned mercy's accent. Nothing is hidden, and no one is mistaken for someone else. Trumpets sound again, closer this time, intimate as a name spoken in the dark. Angels move where cities and deserts and small towns sleep or stir. The scattered flock feels found in every place at once. The small lamb presses forward through a crowd suddenly made of every tribe it has ever heard sung about, faces lit from within by a joy that hurts like healing. He descends, not to a palace balcony, but to the very ground we've always stood on, hallowing dust by touching it. Mountains do not explode, they bow. Seas hold their peace. The shepherd's feet remember hills in Galilee, the slope of Zion, the way valleys gather sound. He walks among people like a sunrise walks among windows, and wherever he steps, the world looks most like itself, true, unbent, awake. Voices rise. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. It is not nostalgia, it is recognition. Palms are not needed. Every tree waves. Rugs are unnecessary. Every road is his. He speaks. No oratory, no performance, just truth so unalloyed that language feels new wearing it. Behold, I make all things new. The sentence runs like living water through memories clogged with silt, through headlines rusted with despair, through families knotted by long silence. He names names the way a gardener names plants, accurately, tenderly, with a plan for flourishing that includes pruning and rain. Angels begin to separate crowds the way shepherds sort flocks at evening, left from right, wolf from lamb, thorn from vine. Not a sorting born of favoritism, but of reality finally allowed to be itself. Mercy is not canceled, it is completed. Justice is not a mood, it is a person. Those who refused mercy will not escape justice. Those who clung to mercy will not fear it. The accounts the poor could never open are balanced without bribe or bias. Some call to mountains to cover them, as if stone could hide hearts from light. But light knows every language and every back road. It asks no one's permission to reveal what is. The shepherd does not rejoice in their dread. His face carries the sorrow of 1,000 prophets and the steadfastness of the one they spoke for. Love who warned is love who returns, and love who returns will not lie about harm or decorate wolves with wool. The small lamb stands within a circle of faces it has learned on roads and in prisons, in meadows and markets. Hands it once held now hold it. The shepherd's shadow falls over them like a wing. Fear, which always waited at the edge of joy ready to snatch, finds no perch. The air feels like a promise kept. He lifts his hand, the one with the scar that closed hell's mouth, and all creation listens. There will be a gathering next, not of rumors and guesses, but of the truth of every life brought to the table where nothing spoils and nothing is wasted. The house of the world is about to be set in order, not with rage, but with rightness that finally fits like a well-made garment. Accounts will be reckoned, wrongs answered, tears accounted for and wiped by the very hand that counts them. The light holds, the trumpets wait, the angels take their places, and the judge, who is also the shepherd, looks at the fields he loves and steps forward to do what only he can do, weigh the world in mercy and truth until it rests level. The light has settled over the world like snow that does not melt. No corner is untouched. No shadow remains thick enough to hide intention. The shepherd stands at the center of it all, quiet, sovereign, unshaken. His eyes hold the tenderness of every rescue and the clarity of every truth ever spoken. Around him gathers all humanity, kings and servants, strangers and friends, the forgotten and the famous. No one is missing. No one is overlooked. He begins to separate. Not with soldiers, not with iron chains or shouted orders, but with a quiet authority that no heart can argue with. It is as simple and as unbreakable as light revealing what is wheat and what is thorn. Those who fed the hungry, clothed the poor, will come to the stranger. They are gathered close to him, not because they bought his love, but because they lived as though they had already received it. Their faces are stunned, not proud. When he says, "When you did this to the least of these, you did it to me." Then his gaze turns. The wolves, some dressed in fine robes, some in piety, some in excuses, stand on the other side. Their hands are clean of blood, but scarred by chains they placed on others. Their lips know scripture, but their hearts never learned mercy. They built walls and called it holiness. They caged the weak and called it order. These are not surprised to be seen. They are surprised to be measured by love instead of power. The shepherd does not sneer. He does not relish this moment. His sorrow is deeper than oceans, but his justice is steady. You refused the hungry, you ignored the prisoner, you walked past the broken and said it wasn't your concern. You did not know me because you would not know them. His words are not a sword, yet they cut through every defense. Some try to bargain, some stare with cold eyes, some fall to their knees, not in repentance but in panic. But judgment is not a debate. It is the unveiling of what has always been true. The sheep, the ones who clung to his voice even when the world roared, are gathered into his right hand as a shepherd gathers lambs into his cloak. The wolves stand apart, and for the first time in their lives, the power they built cannot reach anyone but themselves. Around him, the flock breathes easier. Centuries of fear loosen from their bones. No more whispers in the dark, no more waiting for betrayal, no more watching the horizon for teeth. Now their shepherd stands between them and everything that ever sought to devour. Peace comes, not as a fragile hope, but as a permanent country. Tears fall, but they are not the old kind, not bitterness, not despair. These are tears of release, like chains evaporating, like storms ending. The lamb once lost in the valley steps closer to him, pressing its small head against the hem of his robe. It remembers the cold, the claws, the loneliness. Now it stands where wolves cannot follow. Around them, the faithful from every age gather like stars forming constellations long hidden. Martyrs with names forgotten by history but tattooed on his hands. Parents who prayed through silent nights, servants who loved quietly, children who trusted before they could read. They stand shoulder to shoulder, no longer scattered across time or land. Then, something unexpected happens. The shepherd looks at the flock and smiles, not a small smile, but one that carries sunrise across his face. "Well done," he says to them, not for their perfection, but for their persistence. "You were small in the world's eyes, but you were never small to me." The earth exhales. The wolves, those who chose themselves above all, are led away, not in chains, but in the consequence of their own refusals. They walk into the distance they always chose, to rule without love, to stand without grace. The light does not follow, the flock does not watch long. Because he turns to them again, not as judge now, but as shepherd, as bridegroom, as the one who has waited longer than they ever did. "Come," he says, voice like cool water over stones. "Inherit the kingdom prepared for you since the foundation of the world." This is not the end. It is the doorway. The wolves are gone. The lambs are safe. But love is not finished. There is a feast yet to come, a home yet to be revealed, a world remade not by war, but by his hands. The shepherd steps forward, and the flock follows, hearts steady, lamps still burning, into what he has prepared. The way opens like a door that has been waiting with its hand on the latch since the first garden. Light pours through, not the hard blaze of noon, but the living brightness of a world finally healed. The air is clear in a way lungs always wanted but couldn't name. Every step sounds like welcome. Every breath tastes like mercy. They crest a gentle rise and see it. Pastures roll like green psalms, each hill answering the next. Trees stand with leaves that seem to remember the wind of Eden and sing it back. Flowers don't fight for space, they harmonize. No thorn hides under petals, no poison disguises itself as fruit. The small lamb trots ahead a few paces, stops, looks back as if asking permission to believe this is real. The shepherd's nod is a yes that holds history. There is no sun to chase shadows. There is a presence that outshines need. His nearness is the daylight. His glory is the evening's rest. No flicker, no dimming, no calculating how much oil is left, because the lamp is a person and he does not fade. Farther on, a river runs. It does not crash or boast. It moves with the confidence of a promise kept, winding through the city like a silver word spoken and never revoked. Its water is clear enough to call the heart honest. They kneel to drink, and it is like tasting home, cold and sweet and clean all the way down. Thirst, which used to return like weather, decides to stay gone. On both banks, trees of life lift branches heavy with fruit that does not spoil, and leaves that know how to speak to pain. The shepherd reaches up and brings down a branch with an ease that makes gravity look like a shy guest. He presses a leaf to an old scar on a woman's arm, a line earned by protecting a child on a violent night, and the skin warms, not to erase the memory, but to take away the sting. She watches the mark soften and realizes she can tell the story now without bleeding. Around them, others laugh the first real laughter of their lives, sound that doesn't hide sorrow behind it, joy that isn't guarding the door. He wipes tears. Not symbolically, not in a mass gesture, one face at a time, as if he never learned to hurry. He knows what each drop was for. This one from the prison hour, this one from the graveside when winter would not end, this one from the night faith felt like a thread. His thumb draws away salt, and the ache those tears carried loses its address. Eyes that learn to squint against harsh days open wide. No wolves prowl the edges here. No watchmen scan the horizon because danger has forgotten the map. Gates are not locked. They are decorations, always open, like arms in a house where no one fears theft. Songs drift from courtyards and gardens, the kind sung while chopping herbs and setting tables. Worship woven into work because work has become delight. Children run hard and never fall. Elders sit and rise, without bracing. Faces glow with the kind of rest that used to visit for minutes and now moves in. The city itself shines, not with metal or polished stone, but with rightness. Streets remember footsteps of pilgrims and answer with welcome. Walls do not keep anyone out, they keep wonder in. Names are known without resumes. Stories are heard without being hurried. There is no temple because presence does not need a room. Presence is the room. The small lamb wanders the new fields with fearless curiosity, discovering that every path leads back to the shepherd no matter which way you turn. It finds a meadow sprinkled with little blue flowers that tilt to follow his steps. It rolls on its back in the grass. Yes, joy is that simple here, and the sky seems to laugh along. Beside the river, the shepherd spreads a table again, not because anyone is faint, but because feasting is what love does when there is nothing left to prove. The bread is warm in his hands, and the cup has the taste of everything good that was promised in every small cup they shared before. Those old tables in hidden rooms were sketches. This is the finished painting. The ones who were scattered across continents and centuries sit shoulder to shoulder without time interrupting. They tell each other who God has been, and each story fits inside the next like rings in a tree, growth you can hear. A boy who once faced a lion in the sand asks the lion lying nearby if it remembers hunger. The beast blinks slow, like a candle deciding to stay lit, and lays its head in the child's lap. Blades have become pruning hooks. Hands once clenched around stones now learn instruments. Power has no enemies here. It is simply the strength to lift, to bless, to build. Every joy here is deep, but it doesn't drown the past. It redeems it. Across the river, a grove of tall trees holds a hush like a library. People wander in and find their own lives shelved there, not as records of failure, but as volumes love has edited with patience. Margins are full of notes. I was with you here, and here, and here. Some smile, some weep the last tears they will ever need. Some touch the pages and finally understand why the waiting was so long and the rescue so fierce. The shepherd stands in the midst of them, satisfied in the way only a rescuer can be when rescue has become home. Behold, he says again, not to announce but to invite looking that never grows bored. I make all things new. The sentence hums through the city like a favorite refrain, and even the stones seem to sing back. Yet in this peace, a holy curiosity rises. Not doubt, wonder. They glance at the healed places on their own hearts, at the river that remembers no drought, at the table where everyone is family, and they feel the gentle pull to tell the story properly. Not just the headlines of glory, but the honest path that led here. The storms and valleys, the oil and bread, the nights of silence, the flames that bowed, the endurance when nothing flashed. Someone lays a hand on the lamb's shoulder as if asking without words, "Shall we remember together?" The lamb looks up at the shepherd. He smiles the smile of a father, pleased to hear his children speak of what he has done. And so, by living water and under leaves made for healing, hearts begin to gather their days, not to grieve again, but to name grace, ready to speak of scars that became windows and wounds that learned to sing. There is a quiet room by the river where light lingers longer than elsewhere, as if it loves listening. The walls are woven from living branches and the air smells faintly of bread and rain. Here, memories do not ache. They glow. People come and sit without hurry, and when they place their hands in their laps, the healed places shine like small moons. The shepherd is here. His hands are open, palms upward, as if the whole world could be placed there and still not overflow. The scars remain, bright as truth, soft as mercy. No pain sits behind them now. No shadow hides within. They are not trophies. They are doors. Every eye that meets them understands what love looks like when it refuses to stop at the threshold of cost. A woman traces the pale line that once crossed her wrist, the mark of a night when despair spoke too loudly. She had been found, carried, guarded through more winters than she expected to see. Now the line is like a riverbed after rain, evidence that water once raged, proof that water can pass. She lifts her hand and smiles through tears that do not sting. "You stayed," she whispers, and the shepherd's eyes answer, "Always." A man touches the ridge along his ribs where a blade once kissed him for telling the truth in a square that loved lies. He remembers the fear and the breath that steadied him anyway. He remembers the prayer that was more groan than grammar. He remembers waking to a presence that refused to leave and a peace that refused to be purchased. When he speaks, he doesn't tell the wound's biography first. He tells about the one who watched over him while he slept between guards who didn't know they were watching a miracle breathe. A child, grown now into a grace the world never made room for, runs a finger over a place on his forehead where stones once found him. "I thought I was alone," he says simply. The city he left had trained him to believe it. The shepherd kneels so their faces are level. You are never alone, he says, and in the timbre of his voice, the boy hears every hidden hour. The shepherd walked beside his small feet, cloak spread over him like weather that never failed. Around the room, stories rise like lanterns. A mother who buried a child and learned that graves can hold bodies but not promises. A pastor who fed enemies until the word enemy forgot how to spell itself. A stranger who opened her door to travelers and found her own heart becoming a country with no border patrol. Their scars do not compete. They harmonize. Each healed line sings a note, and together the room begins to sound like gratitude braided through time. The small lamb stands near the shepherd's knee and looks up at the scars in his wrists. They are not ugly. They are beautiful in a way that redefines beautiful. It remembers thorns caught in its wool, remembers the lift to shoulders stronger than fear, remembers bread in a valley where enemies watched and couldn't enter. These, the shepherd says softly, noticing its gaze, are why your wounds do not get the last word. Across the threshold, a meadow opens like a page. The group walks out, and the grass folds under their steps without protest. They pass a tree whose trunk is notched with names, every letter carved by grace, the hidden ones, the constant ones, the sudden converts, and the lifelong plotters. Under the branches, they take turns telling the truth about what hurt and what healed. No one edits for appearances. No one performs. When someone forgets a detail, another remembers, because community has a better memory than solitude. An old soldier stands, hands trembling not with age now, but with awe. I used to think scars meant I'd lost, he admits. But they mean I was found. They mean someone met me where it tore. He looks at the shepherd and laughs. Actual laughter, free and bright. I was carried farther than I ever walked. The shepherd moves among them, not correcting, not curating, simply rejoicing. He touches a shoulder here, a cheek there, rests his palm over a heart that once kept time with panic and now beats to a calmer drum. When he pauses, it isn't because he forgets what to say. It's because he remembers so much more than anyone could tell. Every breath they took in the dark, every step they took when the ground felt like question marks, every help that sounded like hello because they were too tired to pronounce the plea properly. He remembers, and the remembering is worship. They sit by the water. The river lays a silver ribbon at their feet. Each person in turn lifts their hands and sees a map of their journey traced in light. Not one line is missing. Not one is misdrawn. Even the detours have a road back outlined in mercy's ink. They do not thank the pain. They thank the one who refused to let it be final. Tell me about your scars, someone asks the shepherd, though everyone knows the tale. He doesn't dramatize. He speaks the way a gardener speaks of pruning that saved a tree. They are where love finished its sentence, he says. They are where distance died. He turns his hand so the room can see what it means for finished to mean beginning. The small lamb leans against his leg and pictures the night the wolves learned what a gate looks like when guarded by a love that does not blink. It thinks of the valley that tried to rename the world and failed. It remembers oil on its forehead and a rod that struck what needed striking and a tayet, staff that retrieved what needed retrieving. The scars on the shepherd's hands are the guarantee that every place the lamb was weak has a future stronger than explanation. As evening gathers, but does not dim, their gratitude rises into song. Not the kind that strains for a high note to prove faith, but the steady melody of people who have seen rescue and can finally see why it took the shape it did. Voices weave in and out, alto of endurance, tenor of courage, soprano of surprise, bass of ancient trust. The shepherd hums along, and creation hums with him. They fall quiet at last, the kind of quiet that isn't absence but fullness. The shepherd rises, his shadow stretches over the grass like a wing. His eyes hold the welcome of a house with every room already prepared. Hands that still carry the world's salvation lift an invitation. The scars gleam, not like wounds reopened, but like doors standing open. And where stories have finished telling how they arrived, hearts know what they've wanted all along. They stand, not to move away from remembrance, but to walk deeper into the love that made every story worth remembering. Home feels different when the door no longer needs a lock. The meadow lies open like a heart that forgot how to brace. Light moves the way kindness moves, without hurry, without edge, touching leaves, stones, water, faces. The river keeps its soft conversation with the trees, and the trees answer with a music that is memory made green. Laughter lives here, not as a visitor, but as a citizen with full rights. Rest is not a pause between battles, it is the country itself. The small lamb walks where it wants and never wanders, because wherever it goes, it finds the shepherd already there. If it climbs a hill, his shadow meets it at the crest. If it curls in clover, his hand is the ground beneath its breath. It still remembers the valley and the storm, the claw and the thorn, the night where silence pretended to be king. It remembers the rod that struck, the staff that drew near, the oil that learned the language of pain. None of it stings now. Memory has become gratitude without the ache. The shepherd sits beneath a tree whose fruit tastes like answered prayer. The scars in his hands shine as if the sun learned reverence. He is not distant. He is not busy. He is not almost here. He is here, near as air, warm as bread, steady as a pulse you can rest your cheek upon. When he laughs, the river brightens. When he speaks, the grass leans in. When he is quiet, silence turns holy. A table stretches along the riverbank, set with a generosity that refuses to count. Bread arrives still warm from joy's oven. Cups do not empty unless you want them to, and even then they wait, sure of your return. Those who are scattered sit shoulder to shoulder, each face a map of the miles Grace walked to find them. There is no rush to eat, no fear of tomorrow, no measuring portions like people who have known famine. In the shepherd's country, abundance is not a concept. It is a person who serves. Some rise from the feast and sing as they walk, not to be heard, but because the body needs a way to say thank you larger than breath. Songs weave through orchards and over water, into courtyards where crafts are play and play is praise. Potters shaping joy into bowls that never chip, weavers teaching color how to dance, children inventing games where no one loses because nothing has to end. Work is not a burden here, it is a way of loving things until they shine. From time to time, the lamb finds the circle where stories continue, not to mourn, but to celebrate the God who threaded rescue through everything that tried to tangle. An old soldier points at the horizon and says, "I thought the edge would be scary." A widow answers, "It was a doorway." A child sprawled in the grass with a lion using his feet for a pillow adds, "I knew he would come," and everyone agrees like it is the most reasonable thing ever said. The shepherd calls, and the sound is rest. He gathers them, not because there is danger, but because love always gathers. He walks among them, not counting heads, but counting hairs, which is to say, paying attention to the smallest things that ever mattered to anyone. He kneels to eye level with the ones who still instinctively glance toward horizons, as if old habits might ask for permission to return. "You will not be lost," he says. "Not here. Not ever." The promise lands with the finality of a door that closes on a storm. You can still hear far away and will never have to meet again. There is a garden inside the city where rivers braid together and the paths remember every faithful footstep. The shepherd leads them there, the lamb at his knee, the friends beside, the nations behind, and opens a gate that is never shut. The trees bow without losing a leaf. The air carries the first story and the last story at the same time, and you understand both without strain. A garden begun, a garden restored, a world kept safe by a love that learned how to die and then taught death to mind its limits. He pauses at the river's edge. Water combs the light and lays it at his feet. "Behold," he says, "not for the first time and never for the last. My dwelling is with you." The sentence is a home of its own. You could live inside it forever and never find a corner that isn't warm. He wipes the last tears anyone will ever need, one by one, as if the ceremony must be personal to be true. Laughter arrives without apology. Peace sits down and stays. The lamb presses close and feels the rise and fall of his breathing. It remembers being lifted to those shoulders when legs could not, when fear did, when night seemed immortal. It looks around, at table and river, at faces and fields, and knows this is not reward for being strong. This is the life he purchased when he became the lamb. This is the promise kept by a shepherd who refused to save himself so he could save his own. All around, time loosens its grip and becomes something kinder. Seasons that don't threaten, days that never thin to scarcity, evenings that glow like candles at a feast that will not end. You can visit any chapter of your story here and find the shepherd already on the page. The margins carry his handwriting. I was with you here, and here, and here. You read and do not break. You close the book and find you are not closing anything at all. He rises and the world rises with him, as if the ground were excited to bear his weight. He opens his arms, and eternity understands what to do. It gathers closer. Come, he says to those who have always been his, and the word is not an order. It is a welcome that keeps welcoming. The flock answers the way rivers answer gravity. They draw near, not because they are afraid to leave, but because there is nowhere else to go that would be truer than this nearness. The shepherd bends, and the lamb climbs the familiar way, settling where it learned the shape of safety. Shoulders that once bore a cross now bear a friend, and the distance between heartbeats is the only distance left in the universe. Songs lift, not choreographed, not commanded. Voices find each other as naturally as morning finds windows. They sing of gates and valleys, of rods and staffs, of oil and bread and tables in impossible places. They sing the name that tied every loose end into mercy, and the one they sing to smiles, not because he needs the song, but because he loves the singers. Night doesn't fall here. It becomes a kind of velvet daylight, soft and generous, under which everything rests without sleeping. If you listen, you can hear the future humming, not with threat, but with promise. There will be learning and laughter and long walks beside water that never hurries. There will be a billion small joys that never run out of ways to surprise you. And through it all, the same steady truth. The shepherd is near. Forever is a big word. In his arms, it feels the right size. No alarms, no wolves at the edge, no doors to check. Only a house with every room lit, a table always set, a river that keeps telling the story of love in a language water invented for this one reason, to say what cannot fit in sentences. The lamb sleeps without closing its eyes. The shepherd holds without letting go.